welcome to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. Thank you for joining me. It's Monday, the 22nd of May, 2023. I'm Keaton Shaw. Another beautiful day here in TNT. I hope you enjoyed the weekend. It was full of rain and even in some areas full of floods. And the Met Office has issued a weather alert that was due to come into effect at 10 p.m. last night, and with the heaviest of rains to be experienced from this morning. But apart from the rains from the heavens over the weekend, we had multiple murders across Trinidad and Tobago. Not the best way to start a program, but it would be wrong of me not to mention it as the murder spree continues and as the criminals and the criminal activity tends to, well, it seems as though they're the ones that are victorious in this war. It seems as though they're the ones that are running away with sweet TNT. And I make the argument, we're not that far away from Haiti. Perhaps the Trans-Tobago Police Service has power. Whether or not they actually use it, we can have that debate. But I'd give some credit to the TTPS this morning for one article. We've always highlighted, as people say, the negativity. The positivity comes from the largest drug bust in Trinidad and Tobago. Over $234 million in cocaine was seized. This story actually came out on Friday at 4:30 in the afternoon. Officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Services conducted a successful exercise where over 168 kilograms of cocaine worth $234 million was seized during a multi-agency intelligence-led operation on Thursday. In a statement issued by the TTPS on Saturday, they said while working closely with foreign partners, an intelligence unit of the Trans-Tobago Police Service received information in March of 2023 that a large shipment of cocaine was headed to the United States of America. The TTPS said it gathered further intelligence which led to the operation being conducted and the large quantity of cocaine being seized. It's excellent work. Now, the thing is that thankfully, there are foreign agencies and partners who are still actually sharing the intelligence with the Trans-Tobago Police Service. That has become absolutely necessary and crucial in our fight against crime, because our intelligence gathering here in TNT, well, it's a bit under criticism. Even for myself, as I sit in this position, and I've welcomed the media ambassador of the TTPS who represents the service on WESN every Monday, and we should have him later on, actually. I even myself criticize, what is the intelligence gathering? What is the proactive measures, and where are we in terms of preventing crime from happening, our detection rate? Well, in this particular instance, it's good news. So thank God for the TTPS actually getting something done in the sense that it brings, it's a shame it's overshadowed by a lot of other stuff happening, but that's precisely why it's our role and responsibility to highlight when something good happens. A lot more actually took place over the weekend, but we won't get too much into that. Actually, in my drive into Port of Spain this morning, the capital city was full of smoke. So if anybody has any updates with respect to that, please let me know what's going on. Very hazy this morning, and to put on my window to realize, oh, it's only smoke. Let's see what's taking place. I hope everything is okay. Anyway, let's get into some recent updates in the meantime that we can share for you that has taken place between late last week and this morning. We actually start with the nation of Haiti, and where gangs in Haiti have taken over most of the capital city. And one of its most powerful leaders, one of the most powerful gang leaders, Jimmy Barbecue Shazier, spoke to Al Jazeera. The former police officers accused politicians of fueling violence through their support of armed groups. Let's take a look at this report, courtesy of Al Jazeera. Actually, as we speak about one of the most powerful gang leaders, Jimmy Barbecue Shazier. So let's take a look at this report from Al Jazeera.
No kidnapping, no, c'est moi que It's unfortunate we have to call some Haitians enemies, but the Haitian oligarchs and politicians give them guns and ammunition to destroy our communities. There's a difference between a gang and an armed group. We have an ideology. We have a vision to see Haiti with all the services, with drinkable water, schools, jobs, and with security. PM's not asking for foreign troops to come to the country. They want foreign forces to protect them from the crimes they have committed. Several times the UN's intervened in Haiti, and you see that the result is always zero.
And that report is courtesy of Al Jazeera coming out of Haiti. That's the latest update that we have for you. There's a lot more regionals that we can get into a bit later on. We have to take a quick break here on the program, but when we return, I'll welcome my first guest for this morning's conversation. Stay tuned to the program.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinidadians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital. Welcome back to AM Prime, and thank you for staying with us. Well, this morning's first conversation surrounds the fact that the media has been under criticism from some in authority, some with great power and influence, as it relates to the reporting and how reporting on crimes, alleged crimes, misconduct or injustices can actually be a fair factor that only contributes to the situation or the ever-evolving situation here in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, I'm pleased to welcome to the program the President of the Media Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Ira Mathur. Good morning, Ms. Mathur.
Good morning.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. Let's start the conversation by asking, given how Trinidad and Tobago is evolving and the fact that the media has been touted as a fourth estate, precisely how would you describe the role of the media as it relates to reporting? In fact, more specifically, is it effective in getting the messages and the job done, as we'd say?
Yes, the media has been described as the fourth estate, and very rightly, because we are the one institution that holds up all the other institutions. We are the watchdog that holds people to account, holds institutions to account. And in fact, recently on World Press Day, we put out a release. This is the Media Association of Trinidad and Tobago, that out of 80 countries, we in the last year, we've come up 5 points, so that we're number 25 out of 180 countries worldwide in terms of press freedom. So I would say that the media in this country are more than doing their jobs and doing them on the whole responsibly.
How crucial is the role of the media in promoting democracy, and any sort of attempts to stifle or influence media? In Trinidad and Tobago, do we see such taking place? For example, there have been arguments that not all media houses are invited to sit in press conferences. Not all of them are actually invited to cover what would be deemed as crucial announcements by those in authority. So are we seeing that taking place here in TNT, though you just mentioned our improvement in the World Press Freedom Rankings?
Of course, I'll have to agree, especially during COVID. I think what happened was media were really restricted. Photographers were restricted, from going into Parliament. We had some kind of restrictions to cover the president's event in Tobago. There were other times. There was more recently, some people were in uproar about the fact that not everybody was invited, not everybody who wanted to attend was invited to the Prime Minister's media conferences. We wrote to the Prime Minister's office, and since then that problem seems to have been resolved. So the issue with the media is that we have a different agenda, right, to the government. Our agenda is to be the watchdog, to hold people responsible, and their agenda, I suppose, is to show they're in charge and do what they in politics. And what I believe that the Media Association of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in the last 2 years, has been really strong on catching every occasion where there have been attempts to keep us out, and we have, I think, fairly successfully succeeded in getting a much larger of our force into the mainstream. I mean, for instance, during COVID, you must know that media were restricted, especially in the health conferences. And what Matt did was we got questions from all over, and we passed them straight on to the health minister. So I think the idea of eternal vigilance is important, and because we are a strong institution, I think we've got about 180 members right now, and we've got a very strong chat group with some veterans, some new people, people in new media, and I think for the first time, photographers and technical people were extremely strong, and we have been pushing back.
This agenda that you speak of, is it that we have been, effective in ensuring that we carry out this agenda, Or is it that there are media houses or even media personnel who follow the status quo for the sake of survival?
When you say follow the status quo, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
I meant keep ourselves in line. For example, we don't have a choice but to actually report only on certain things. We're restricted in terms of reporting for the sake of actually still being able to be a part of certain events or certain avenues for I suppose, survival.
I mean, in all countries, and especially in countries like ours, where we had 600 murders last year, there's obviously there's going to be some level of self-censorship, which I don't agree with. But, you know, I think our media has not gone that way. And of course, we've had to be careful, you know, for safety, and I will completely condone that. I think reporters need to go as far as they can with all the safety tools in hand, you know, making sure that somebody knows where they are, making sure that they are safe, making sure that they cover events safely and they're out of there safely, because media are in the front line, right? We were in the front line during COVID. In terms of getting COVID, in terms of our own health, and we are also citizens. So if a reporter goes out to cover a story in the dead of night, you know, you hear of a murder. I mean, obviously, you don't expect that reporter to jump out of the car right in front of a big crime scene and, you know, ongoing crime scene. You know, they have to ensure that police are there. So I would actually say that our media are very, very free. I think what you may be referring to, I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe you could give me some examples of what you're speaking of in terms of self-censorship and not being free and kowtowing.
Well, there have been reports that indicate rumors, of course, within the media fraternity that there are some journalists who are actually biased in terms of their reporting, again, simply because they have no choice. There's also some understanding that some media houses have had to actually restrict some of their representatives, their journalists, from asking questions or even attending certain press conferences by the instructions given by those in authority. I'm not entirely sure if you're aware of that, but it is something that, from my position, I've heard multiple times.
But I could tell you that people in our association, if they were not allowed to ask questions, if they were you know, put down in any way, there would be an uproar. It's a very, very vibrant group. So, you know, as soon as there's a suggestion of that, we act. I'd really love to know some examples. But I think what you're also speaking of is that perhaps some media come across like we're also citizens in addition to being media. And you're saying that some media houses come across as biased. Is that what you're saying, that some stories are biased? Against or for the government?
There have been suggestions of such. As it relates to examples, we know how this works. For the sake of not calling any one media house or any one journalist on air, I'll be more than happy to share with you information off air.
But I mean, in like all allegations, we need some examples, right? But if you check the media in the UK, for instance, various media houses are fully within their right to take certain political stances, right? So if you read the Daily Mail, it's extremely right-wing. It's always pro-government and it's always pro-conservatives. It's, you know, so you actually know the line that you're going to get. And if you read The Guardian, it's an extremely liberal paper. It's you know, it's fairly left-wing. And you actually know what kind of stories that you're going to get in The Guardian. Similarly for The Telegraph or The Economist, because you know, The Economist is going to take a very pro-business line, The Telegraph is going to take a very pro-business line, and you know, other papers may not. So these biases are allowed once everybody knows that that is who you're working for. So if you're working for the Catholic News, you know, there's going to be a bias towards spirituality and God and, you know, those things. If you're working for, you know, specific newspapers that need to target specific audiences, that's completely acceptable. But I think in the cases that you speak of, with all due respect, I think you are also one of us, right? You're part of the media. It's so easy when you're in the public eye. Our agenda is different to everybody else's agenda. For people to throw shade at us and say, oh, you know, and have kind of dark forebodings of we are following a party line, or we are against some government, or we're against some minister. I think concrete examples always need to come up, because we can't live in a shadow of a fog of, as a small country, sometimes we're like a little village, right? And somebody gives a rumor here and there, and very needlessly, the reputations of our colleagues are sullied. So I'm all for coming out and saying it was on this occasion, this happened, and this person was not allowed to attend a conference, and this person, was kept out, and this person was told from the editor that they couldn't write a story. When we have that, we can cope with it a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I would agree with you on one of the points that you just made there, that it's very easy for names to be sullied within the public domain. Even in terms of my position, you're absolutely right. Many a times with debates on current affairs and what's taking place, the public tend to be, rather critical rather than constructive. So I definitely, and I do actually like the example of you using the British press, because everything that you said there, I'm very much aware of. But beyond that, if we take a look at what Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the head of the Central Division, mentioned a month and a half ago, that media reporting spreads fear in Trinidad and Tobago. We even heard from Honourable Minister last week speaking about children's homes and not focusing so much on the negativity. In terms of that, could the media report facts and bring these stories to light without actually spreading fear, in the sense that could you separate both, or is it that it's impossible given the nature of the stories?
Well, I think you've brought up some really, really crucial issues. When I started off as a young journalist, I remember there was one horrific photograph in the front page of The Guardian. I was in television then, and to see this in the newspaper, it was that of a headless body, just a face that had been severed. A head that had been severed, it was in the front page. And those things are extremely gory. Or if there have on occasions been vulnerable children, in places where they should have been protected. But I'm sure you're aware that currently we are the 6th most murderous country in the world. Last year, 600 people were murdered, among them 50 women. And people, if you're following the newspapers, which of course you are, people are living under fear. And I actually think that journalists have been amazing in covering crime alongside covering the other crucial issues of the country that affect us. We've been covering the economy, we've been covering crime, we've been covering foreign affairs, and anytime, the editorials have been calling government out on various issues. So I actually feel that the media in this country, which we've been doing our jobs, which has always been what is our role? Yes, to be the fourth estate, to hold all the other institutions, the judiciary, the parliament. We have to hold them to account. Similarly, we're not making up these stories. We're a mirror of the country. So if we turn into a country where it's fairly safe, and say there are 20 murders a year, you won't see so much on the pages. You won't open up the Express, Guardian, Newsday, and all the other newspapers and all the, everything online and just see murder after murder after murder. The truth is, there's 1.6 murders a day. Some of them are horrific. Last week or the week before, there were, the assassination type gunshots on people, on families. Whereas before, you thought that certain things were sacred, that even when there were shootings, they would protect the children, they would protect women and the elderly. That's not happening. Elderly are being shot, children are being shot, citizens are being shot. And if we, the media, don't stand up and say something, then who is? And, similarly to the government, we have a different agenda. And I have no problem with anybody in the police service saying the media are doing this, they're sensationalizing it, because that's their agenda. And incidentally, when I speak of the police, I have to say that in general, the police have been extremely competent in working alongside journalists. They have been providing the numbers. The TTPS has been very open in terms of the kinds of murders that have taken place. In every crime journalist, because it's a very specialized area, has their own trusted contacts. So I think the police in general and the people that we have and the police officers that we are dealing with are extremely responsible. We are just doing our job. So, it's like saying, if we are almost like a conflict. We're racing into the area with that kind of murder rate into a country with conflict. And so in a country with conflict, if you don't report the murders, the killings that happen, then you're basically shoving your head under the sand and you're protecting everybody else. And that's not our job. In fact, I think the media ought to be commended, hugely commended, for coming out. Because remember, we're also citizens. Every day, media workers go out to crime scenes. They go all over the place. They don't have the protective gear that the police have. They're going all over. They're writing stories. They have bylines on the stories. And they are just as much, and they are very, very vulnerable because they're public figures, and people can find them easily, and they're reporting the truth. So I think more than ever, right now, media need protection.
Certainly, but beyond that, how has also the growth and the influence of social media impacted upon mainstream media reporting? I know you just used the example of when you first, started as a journalist, that example of a photo on the front page of a newspaper. And now we see that taking place quite a bit on social media. In fact, many people get their news via social media. So how has social media, its growth and its influence impacted upon mainstream media reporting?
I think it's been a monster. It's been a two-sided, it's been a monster on the one hand for us. I mean, in my time, I have been known to open, go to the library for information. But I think social media has done untold damage, created an entire wads of disinformation, and we didn't see it so clearly as we saw it during the pandemic, right? Because people were saying that there is a really wonderful phrase that Christian Amanpour brought up, and the idea of false equivalence. You don't take fake news, or you don't take news that is obviously has not been checked and verified and put it in front of scientific news from trusted sources and say you need to compare the two. And that was what was happening during COVID. Another example is, if you're actually reporting in a war-torn country, you don't actually, there's a false equivalence, which, one of our very, very prominent members of the Media Association, Soini Gray, and she's also a member of the ACM, she brought up, and that's the idea of false equivalence, the same thing that Christian Amanpour spoke of. You can't, the example is mine, you can't, for instance, cover a tank going into a country and kind of raising over 3 children and, speaking of that they both have an equal voice. There's obviously some perpetrator and there's obviously some victim. The way that we can stay, it is a huge headache for us. The social media, it's been a help. In some ways, we can get our stories out there much faster, but then so can so-called citizen journalists. I think they're the bane of journalists' lives, because everybody seems to, with social media, everybody seems to think that they have the vocation of being a journalist, whereas in fact, journalism is a vocation. It's almost a sacred vocation where you're guarding the fourth estate. You're making sure that you check your stories and you check them again and you get verified, you get verified information, and you have this on the other side. And the only way that journalists can beat that is by being extremely good, by setting such a standard that no citizen journalist could come up to it, so that when our stories go out there, people are still coming to us for the truth.
My final question to you, Ms. Mathur, who is to hold the media to account? For example, who will be the biggest critic constructively? Would it be a body such as the Media Association of Trinidad and Tobago? Who would be the biggest, I suppose, critic of the media and their role? and the role in which they play in terms of Trinidad and Tobago and how society is evolving?
That's such a good question. I think actually, who is going to hold us accountable? You know who holds us accountable? The entire public every single day. You're out there every single day. You mess up, whether it's with your pronunciation or with a fact, the entire Trinidad and Tobago, or whoever's watching your channel, is going to be on you. And that's happened to me in the past when I've skipped out one or two words. I've made an error in a column, and I've been attacked ruthlessly. And that is what happened. If we are here to hold institutions to account, and that's why it's such an amazing organization that you and I are part of. We're holding institutions to account, but the country is holding us accountable. So every time we mess up, there are 1,000 people who can write letters to the editor, 1,000 people, even now with social media, who can go out and actually say false things about us. There are so many avenues to complain about journalists. There's also the TTPBA, which is the Publishers Association, which has a specific complaints body against journalists. You can write to editors, you can write to senior reporters. There's many, many ways of holding journalists to account. And you know how it's not easy being in the public eye, because in our jobs, it's not like we're an accountant or, when we mess up on certain numbers, somebody quietly comes and tells us that's wrong. When we mess up, or if I say something wrong, it's not just you that's going to hold me to account. It's the entire association of media. Can you imagine all our journalists who are extremely bright and extremely, on top of things? It's the politicians, it's the police, everybody holds us to account. So I hope that answers your question.
It certainly does, Ms. Mathur. And again, yes, I truly understand the position that you sit in and some of the experiences, because even I myself, most recently as of Friday, you face it all the time with respect to public scrutiny. But Ms. Mathur, yes, thank you very much for your time this morning, and thank you very much for highlighting the role of journalists, and even sometimes how journalists go far and beyond, and perhaps greater respect is needed, because we truly do not understand what journalists do and how far they need to go or have to go in order to get that job done. So thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. That was Ms. Ira Mathur, the president of the Media Association of Trinidad and Tobago, speaking about the role of the media, and especially as it relates to where we are as a nation and how crucial media is to promoting democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, we'll end some lighter conversation this morning. Stay tuned.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices, like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher Price. Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
The MG showroom has an SUV for your personality with multiple features that will have you driving in comfort and style. MG gives you the most miles, and now you can own your brand new MG for as little as $85 a day. I am Trisha Burke from Massey Motors. Contact me to drive away with your MG today.
Welcome back to AM Prime here on WESN. Well, as you already know, but I would remind you that AM Prime and WESN Content Capital are pleased to partner with North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2023, which is days away. It takes place on Saturday. Movie night actually kicks off the entire festival Friday night. But this morning, I am welcome to join to the party, because it's party time in Blanchard's on Saturday. Miss Stacey Sobers. She's with me in studio. Good morning, Miss Sobers.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. In fact, I'm looking forward to your performance on Saturday.
Thank you.
More than anything else, but I'm privileged enough to have a conversation with you before that time comes. So let me ask you a question. Who is Stacey Sobers?
Well, Stacey Sobers has been on the music scene for a little over 20 years now. I started singing reggae. I did party time in 1994. Do not count.
Not counting.
Okay then. Right. And then I branched off into calypso. So I'm currently a calypsonian. I sing with the Divas Calypso Cabaret International, and I also manage the tent. And well, I dabble in all other genres of music. So here I am, North Coast Jazz.
But yeah, that's actually great. But with reggae to calypso, there is a relationship between reggae and calypso. In fact, it has been argued that reggae stems, its roots are
from calypso. Yes, absolutely.
So was that transition easy?
Absolutely. I mean, music is music where I'm concerned. I keep telling people music is music. And once you love music, it doesn't matter the genre. Once you dabble and you listen and you feel and you love, you will transition easily. And the transition was fairly easy for me.
Mm-hmm. And what about, you just said music is music.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about this festival where all walks of life come together, where everybody from Trinidad and Tobago and beyond, we're all meeting. And from reggae to calypso, I've heard of individuals who've gone from reggae to calypso to R&B.
Yeah,
They've dabbled in everything. Music does not discriminate, does it?
At all. I mean, we were all musicians. Everyone have a talent. Talent bestowed on you is just the way you use it and how you project it, how you share it with the people. Music, as I said, is music.
And is it also a form of uniting a people?
Absolutely.
Is it just one thing human beings could actually all agree upon?
Yeah. And there's this song, I think, for every pain there's a melody. Is that Chronics? Every pain there's a melody. Yeah, for every trouble there's a harmony. Music unites, music heals, music, you know, it just, music is an all-round healer, I should say.
And in terms of your works, in terms of your original works, tell us a bit about some of your tracks and what they mean to you, in fact, how you even inspired to write them.
Okay, so I haven't written in a while, so I've been sourcing music, but what happens for me is that we come up with ideas and we look for writers, explain to them what this song should be, what it should feel like, and they pen and we internalize and put out the music. But for me, it always has to be positive. It must be a positive message, something to uplift, something to advise, that kind of thing. So it's always positive on my end.
So then, is it that music also allows you to see the positive from the negative?
Absolutely, because I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. It's always a silver lining. So we just have to look for that and apply it.
Now, you just mentioned that you would speak to writers, you know, tell them this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm looking for, this is what it should really sound like. But so your role and your position, having been in music for a number of years, you're also helping young writers and young musicians as well foster their talents.
Absolutely, because as I said, everybody has a talent. If I can't write, somebody else has to be able to write. Even if they don't have the inspiration, they could get it from somewhere else. You could share with them your thoughts and allow them to be creative.
Do you think that gift that you're sharing, or that knowledge, that experience, do you see that happening with musicians generally, or does a lot more need to be done in your eyes?
For the most part, it happens. I mean, we could extend ourselves more, but for the most part, I think, especially studio work, I think we see the creativity gelling there, where the artist would liaise with the producer or the writer, and I mean, come together and make something special. So it happens. Maybe not as much as we wanted to, but it does, it happens.
So why North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2023?
I went to North Coast Jazz. My husband took me to North Coast Jazz, I think it was 2019. That year, Tree Canal was on. We're Tree Canal fans. Yes, I said it, we're Tree Canal fans. And we went to North Coast Jazz, and I was blown away by the ambience, the people. I mean, I see people that I know from all over, right? The music was awesome. And we looked at each other and said bucket list, because we made bucket list. Bucket list, we put everything on the bucket list and tried to achieve them. John Gill and Auntie Margaret came to one of my shows, and John said, you know, you could do North Coast Jazz, but it didn't happen the next year. So 2023, here I am, making the bucket list possible and happen. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
What can we look forward to for Stacey Silvers?
A really nice set. The set is some of everything, a little authentic jazz, a little mix-up soca with jazz, and just Stacey Silvers putting her all into what she loves, to entertain and make it nice.
You know, you just said a little bit of soca with jazz. I think that's interesting. I've heard that happening before, but is that you know how you see music taking place now? You've got dancehall, then you've got Trinidad, just as music is taking place. Is this soca infusion with jazz Trinidad's own genre of jazz? Is it that we're making it our own?
I would like to believe so. I mean, we have the Vonnet Bigford, who does a lot of soca jazz crossover types songs. So it is, yeah, I absolutely would think that's something that we are honing in Trinidad.
But certainly something like taking the script of a power soca song and even trying to translate it to jazz. Yeah. That certainly doesn't sound like a very easy task.
I mean, we come back to the line that I just said. Music is music. Rhythm, bass. Once you have that feel for the music, and you could, any genre will work. Any genre will work. And like you said, everything stems from calypso, so anything will work.
Right? How crucial, and I like that, by the way, because I love my music. I'll go all the way back as the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah, right.
I absolutely love it. But what you're just mentioning there, in my mind, it's obstacles to me, and it seems as though it just comes so naturally to you, which is excellent. But how crucial is festivals and performances such as North Coast Jazz to the music industry, and by extension even young and upcoming artists, in your mind?
I think, especially in Trinidad, we may not have enough of that type of thing. I mean, we see North Coast Jazz has been a big event for the last couple of years, and I think if we introduce the youth more to this type of thing, we'll have less crime because it's a love vibe, and it's crucial to not just the artists or the industry, but to communities where you take the music, where you hold shows, you invite people. You give away some tickets and let the youth come out and see what it's all about. It's very, very, very crucial to the industry and to the community and to Trinidad and Tobago as well. Yeah.
But does the support exist? You said more needs to be done. Now that we've more or less opened up from the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot more needs to be done, would you say?
Yeah, well, I mean, we could push it more. I mean, this is our thing.
Yes.
This is our thing. You see all kind of artists coming from outside, and we're supporting it. So we need to push it. We need to get it out to the people and make it possible for them to come. I don't know.
Would you be staying up in Blanchard's for the weekend?
Absolutely. You see that like you're not sure.
I'm just making sure.
Yes, I will be, because I want to experience the movie night, because I didn't do that the last time. So I really want to experience the movie night and just get vibes of the place,
Yeah, but it's nice. I can tell you from my experience last year. The people of Blanchard's are so warm and welcoming, and this is the thing. It's putting Blanchard's on the map, or at least I hope it does.
Yeah.
And even by you performing, you're contributing to that development. Yes. Would you say that you feel it's your responsibility to do so, or is it more that I just want to do it?
Absolutely, my responsibility. As a Calypsonian, we are the newspaper. I mean, not just to bring the bad news, but to bring the good news, to uplift people. See an article in paper, hey, let's make me smile today. I want to be that person at North Coast Jazz. We make somebody smile, make somebody feel happy, some type of way, So,
but if even in your position, even if you're facing difficulty, who then is your newspaper in terms of spreading the good news?
Anita Baker, Sigurd Sandra, Stalin, Marlon Asher, because that's my brother. I like to listen to his music. A whole lot of other people. Music is life. I listen to a lot of gospel too, so.
Hey, the first artist, Anita Baker, I don't even say artist, legend in Anita Baker, you call her, I was like, instantly yes. Totally agree with you, totally agree with you.
She just has the student type of thing, so, yeah.
Well, I certainly look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Like I said,
I will look for you, I'll make sure I see you.
Trust me, as I've said before to some artists, I'm going to be the one standing right in front of you saying, hey, this is me! Hey, remember me, Stacey? I'm crazy just to, I might even run up on stage with you, but then
if I call you and you don't come, we will fall off. Just saying.
And she's put me on the spot on air, on national television. She's
better practice some songs, practice some harmonies, some kind of thing. Or dance.
I'm beginning to regret this. Listen, if you don't see me, it's because, Margaret and John was
because you're hiding.
No, I'm not hiding. I wouldn't be hiding. Trust me, I wouldn't be. I promise you, I will be right there in the middle of the crowd. And
I'll be looking for you, Okay. I'm holding you to your word.
Stacey Silvers, this has been absolute fun. So the party has started here in studio, and we're taking it, we're building it up until Saturday. Yes. I look forward to seeing you there. Unfortunately, I won't be there on Friday night.
That's all right.
All right, good. So you'll see me on Saturday. Ms. Sobers, best of luck to you, and thank you for
you so
your
much.
contribution
Thank you.
to the development of music, the
Thank you.
continued
Most
development. And Saturdays is party time in
Yes,
Lancashire.
see you all on Saturday. Make
Miss
sure you get
Stacey
tickets.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Miss Stacey Sobers. We're going to take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we'll get into some more conversations this morning. I think I need to go clear my throat and practice my humming from now. We'll be right back after this.
Hey beautiful people, Stacey Sobers here, inviting you to join me and a star-studded cast of artists for North Coast Jazz 2023. May 27th, Salman Hotoy Park, Blanche shares. Get your tickets early. Gates open at 1 and you don't want to miss a thing. So make the road trip, because it's not just jazz, it's North Coast Jazz.
Festival grounds, Lancashire. Enjoy a beautiful evening of fantastic music together with your friends. Be mesmerized and captivated by the music of our top local entertainers and musicians, including BP Renegades, Ace Panis and Arranger, Duvon Stewart, Chrison Joseph, Sitarist Extraordinaire, Mungo Patterson, Stacey Sobers, Gospel Queen Nisa, backing band led by Magic Finger guitarist Dean Williams. Also, Brass to the World, featuring two iconic superstars Ronnie McIntosh and Super Blue, plus much more. Born here and played here. North Coast Jazz, Saturday, 27th May at Festival Grounds, Lancashire. Showtime, 3:30 p.m. Tickets already on sale at Kenny's Sports Centers. Extra Foods, Crosby St. James, Mott's Liquor Palace, Diggle Martin Main Road, WESN, Gallagher Street, Athletes by the Park, and IslandEatTickets.com. For more info, call 331-4285. Get ready for North Coast Jazz.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Oh, I absolutely love my job. You know, following that conversation with Miss Irma through this morning, and she says, Keaton, you have to give me examples. You know, you must give me examples of what you speak of. And she's right. That's one of the criticisms I've had, generally speaking, about statements being made and examples not being given. But we all know how this works, so I'll give those examples off air. I won't say it out loud, you know. But apart from that, and certainly a conversation I enjoyed, Miss Stacey Sobers brought some very good energy, very positive energy to the show this morning. And I look forward to seeing her on Saturday. And I have to do my best to try and hide in the crowd, but I'll be there looking forward to that performance. Certainly, Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of bad is happening, but there's so much positive. It's being overshadowed by all this hatred and violence and anger, but there is so much positive. There's so much good things and so much good people and even good acts that are taking place. And I would love to have greater focus on that. But I also have a responsibility and a duty to you. Anyway, before we welcome our final guest for this morning's edition of AM Prime, let's get back into your regional updates and we move across to the nation of Cuba, where Cuba's foreign ministry has announced major changes for passports. In fact, this report comes out of the United States. Let's take a look at it.
Cuba announcing new policies that will affect Cuban Americans born on the island nation.
And this all comes as a mass exodus of migrants to the U.S. continues. Local 10's Cody Weddle is live to explain more for us.
And Louis and Christy, for younger Cubans, these new policies are great. It will lower the cost of maintaining a Cuban passport from about $900 to just $180. But for older Cubans, those who arrived here in the U.S. Before 1971, there's a catch. Cuba's foreign ministry announcing major changes for passports. Here's what changed. All Cubans must now possess a Cuban passport to travel to the island. Those who left the country before 1971 no longer exempt. Passports will last for 10 years now instead of 6. The cost of a new passport obtained abroad now lowered from over $400 to just $180. And no longer must passports be validated every 2 years.
This obviously is a step in the right direction.
Former Congressman Joe Garcia says he pushed for these changes. And while he mostly supports the move, he disagrees with the policy that doesn't allow older Cubans to visit the island with a U.S. passport.
But the truth is, even if they didn't have a Cuban passport, the only way they could travel to Cuba was to submit their passport to the Cuban embassy in Washington.
At travel agencies catering to Cubans like this one, workers now preparing for a surge in Cubans who want to visit the island.
Van a incrementarse los viajes de los cubanos en la isla. Muchos cubanos.
Telling me they've already been receiving many calls today to understand the new process. So for older Cubans, the costs of that visa for a one-time visit to Cuba that they used to have to obtain is actually around the same price for a new Cuban passport under these new prices. So financially, there won't be much difference for older Cubans. Of course, politically, some older Cubans are saying they would rather travel to the island with a U.S. passport. We're live in Miami's Little Havana neighborhood. I'm Cody Weddle, Local 10 News.
Okay, big changes there. Thank you so much.
Well, not live as in right now. No, that report from last week, Friday. Anyway, let's go across to Antigua and Barbuda. Now, this is a story of which you may have heard of on WESN previously. We're using it once more on AM Prime. Nigerian airline Air Peace is expected to take 70% stake in Liat 2020 Limited, with the carrier to be run strictly on a commercial basis. That revelation comes from Prime Minister the Honourable Gaston Brown, who also says efforts are underway to establish the Air Operating Certificate, or AOC, for Liat 2020 Limited. This report coming out of Antigua and Barbuda.
The government of Antigua and Barbuda saved the carrier from the brink of liquidation by placing it under administration. Since then, a court-appointed administrator, Cleveland Seaforth, has been piloting the operation. The focus now is on Liat 2020 and ensuring it can meet the region's transportation needs. That's where a prospective partnership with Nigeria's Air Peace comes in.
So what we're moving now is to establish the AOC, right, the Operating Certificate for Liat 2020, and to have this partnership with Air Peace, in which Air Peace will emerge as a 70% shareholder in the new Liat.
The carrier is now operating with 2 aircraft and with a smaller footprint of routes, But that is set to change once the new arrangement is concretized.
They will bring some assets, and we will also acquire some assets as well, and hopefully we could have maybe 5-6 aircraft operating within the region under the name Liat. We think that Liat is a strong brand. It's a regional brand which we believe should be maintained, and I'm hoping that we can make this a reality so that we can protect the existing jobs and even to create new jobs to those employees who are displaced, especially the pilots.
The Prime Minister said the primary intention was to have had a Liat owned by the regional governments, given how crucial regional transportation is. However, with that not having materialized, the Prime Minister says this is now the best route.
I know that there are many who would want to second guess that decision, but again, I don't know there's any other viable option at this point. I mean, I would accept that regional governments would have indicated a willingness to invest in a regional airline, but in terms of having firm commitments, we're not at that stage, and we need to move. I mean, regional travel is a major issue.
The head of government explained how Liat's approach is likely to change under a private majority shareholder.
This airline will be run or operated strictly on a commercial basis. So it would not be a regional bus that will be operating on unprofitable routes. And if indeed it has to operate on profitable routes, then there has to be some MRG, some
minimum revenue guarantees.
So, we're looking forward to, the eventual operationalization of this new Liat 2020, and we're committed to do all we can to ensure its viability and sustainability.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the latest with respect to Liat 2020 Limited. Prime Minister, the Honourable Gaston Brown, mentioning that regional air travel is still a major issue, and I suppose Caribbean Airlines has not been able to dominate on that. In one sense, yes, their prices are sky high at times, but I suppose that's the cost of travel. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a quick break here on AM Prime. When we return, we welcome our final guest for this morning. Stay tuned.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The countdown has started for the premier jazz show of the season. Get your tickets for North Coast Jazz. Festival grounds, La Chiges. Enjoy a beautiful evening of fantastic music together with your friends. Be mesmerized and captivated by the music of our top local entertainers and musicians, including BP Renegades, Ace Panis and Arranger, Dubon Stewart, Chrison Joseph, Sitarist Extraordinaire, Mungo Patterson, Stacy Silvers, Gospel Queen Nisa, backing band led by Magic Finger guitarist Dean Williams. Also, Brass to the World, featuring two iconic superstars, stars Ronnie McIntosh and Super Blue, plus much more. Born here and played here. North Coast Jazz, Saturday, 27th May at Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. Showtime, 3:30 p.m. Tickets already on sale at Kenny's Sports Centers. Extra Foods, Crosby St. James, Mott's Liquor Palace, Diego Martin Main Road, WESN, Gallagher Street, Athletes by the Park, and IslandEatTickets.com. For more info, call 331-4285. Get ready for North Coast Jazz.
Welcome back to AM Prime. Now, the Prime Minister received an honorary doctorate from Howard University just over a week ago. Now, not everybody is happy about it. In fact, one particular group have issued a letter to Howard University's Board of Trustees and gave them 3 days to respond. Whether or not there has been a response, well, we'll find out now as I welcome the Corporate Secretary of Fishermen and Friends of the Sea, Mr. Gary Aboud. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I don't know. I never said I wasn't happy about the Prime Minister getting his award.
See, that's where
a lot of people.
That's where I'm smart, sir. I didn't quote you as saying that you're not happy. I just said some people aren't entirely happy, sir.
Well, some people are very unhappy because they are arise as to how these awards are given. For instance, I mean, few people know that the president of Howard University is associated with the Prime Minister, and they met recently at a funeral in Tobago. I think it was in 2020, and then miraculously the president of Howard University, Dr. Frederick, he got our nation's highest award. You know, when it comes to awards, it's a ticklish thing for me because I think it's a great way of recognizing public service and encouraging citizens to do something good without an expectation of return. And what it is really, it's just a thank you. It's just thank you for your contribution. A lot of people, like for instance, the PNM, the Women's League, they're calling for a boycott of my small company. Now I employ 200 people, and if the PNM constituency boycotts my company, I'm in serious trouble. So, but I never said anything racial or discriminatory about it. I question when Kamala got the silk. I question a lot of things about how it's awarded. I'm concerned about the awkwardness of the president awarding her son and her husband silk 3 months after she's appointed. These are unusual circumstances, and I think it's only fair that the people who have contributed to our society, as simple and humble as they are, should also be recognized. I mean, we have had citizens who have risked their lives in floodwaters last year or year before, swimming with alligators to rescue people who were marooned in water. But we never recognized them. We've had, Pat Bishop got the Order of the Republic. Took Trinidad and Tobago forward decades in terms of musical understanding and the interpretation and orchestration of music. She was a beyond international standard teacher and musician. So she got the Order of the Republic. I totally support that. But what does Kusals do? Kusals, he's a road builder, he paid for his work. What has he done to merit that he should be recognized with a national award. So, quite frankly, when my father was alive, and my father was a very simple man, came from a very poor and very humble background. And I say it proudly, he was an honest man that never robbed anybody or paid any bribe. And he made it. And at the end of his life, he was still a man from very humble origin who had educated his children. So when Gary Aboud was awarded an honorary doctorate and called by the well-known Professor Diosaran of UE that Gary Aboud would be honored, I was so proud to tell my dad that his son, I mean, my father slept on pavements on the road with his father when he was pedaling on the road. So for him to have a son, or for my grandfather, a person came from war, that was an immigrant, came here very poor, like all of our grandparents. But then, you know, we were invited to speak at a conference, and at that time we spoke about idiosyncrasies of the government of the day. It was the Pandey government at the time, and we spoke about the idiosyncrasies of them saying one thing and doing another. And that evening, Minister Nanan, who was the minister who heard me what I said, he must not have been happy. They withdrew the honorary doctorate. Likewise, the Greenleaf Award was appointed. There's so many instances where...
Well, Mr. Aboud, let me ask you, are we making a bigger issue of this than should be? You know, are we taking this further than actually should be the case? Aren't there more important things to focus on?
Well, if you have risked your life and done something to help others, you should be recognized. If, however, you have destroyed the Procurement Act, you have abused and insulted the media and locked them out, and done a whole string of other things that are awkward and unacceptable. If you spent $87 million to renovate President's house 5 years ago, but not do any construction whatsoever, and then celebrate $87 million, if you have awarded contracts to friends, or you have secretly gone and bought warships without any procurement, even though you have 10 warships that are a waste of money, that can't work, that are improperly constructed, and you secretly buy them without any procurement, any public announcement, any consultation, and you raise concerns in a national audience that you are a dictator that is corrupt, that does not want to be regulated. I mean, you know, I am not a supporter of politicians. I'm a supporter of good conduct. So when I say, like, I belong to a group with a lot of UNC people on the group, they're accusing me of being a secret supporter of Rowley because I congratulated him when he won the election. FFOS is a public interest body that has 50% UNC supporters and 50% PNM. And we don't play politics. We've never, my president, Aaron Spence, has founded our group, co-founded it, with the principle of apolitical conduct. So certainly I congratulate and applaud the fact that the UNC under Kamala brought the Procurement Act and passed it in Parliament when the PNM walked out. And certainly she is merit to her that she appointed a civil society member to prepare the legislation, Afra Raymond. And he consulted with a wide audience, including FFOS. This is the way a democracy works. That we should get a prime minister, this Dr. Rowley, that promises to empower and pass the regulations for the Procurement Act, doesn't in 5 years. And then on the eve of the election, promises the national audience that he will do it if he gets back into office. And within a year of getting back into office, you remove all the teeth from the Procurement Act so that nobody can be regulated in government. And you pass it You're spending hundreds of millions of dollars every day in a country that has 30% below the poverty line. In the Deep South, we have something like 70% of our people below the poverty index. And now you decorate yourself and your friends with international and nationally recognized awards, the highest award for Trinidad and Tobago.
Has Howard University given any clarification or justification as it relates to the process for awarding honorary doctorates? I know a letter was written. Have you received any responses yet?
Oh, people like that never respond to people like us. They live in a secret world. I don't expect them to respond, but I'm sorry to say that I'm obligated to say things that I have not yet said about if they don't respond, because I am a big supporter of humanitarian conduct, merit, of good behavior, of reward, and I am an enemy of injustice, of poverty, of exploitation. And there's a whole kaleidoscope, there's a whole rainbow of those things that are occurring here. And unless we, as a people, can promote goodness, I am not racist. The people are accusing me on both fronts, on the UNC side and on the PNM side, being racist, depending on the posture and the position we take on public decisions and public issues. The last thing I am, and I will pay for my sins, but the last thing I am is racist. That is not what motivates FFOS. FFOS are a public interest body. So we are talking about a government that has smothered health reports of mercury contamination in fish. Mercury is a heavy metal. Once you eat fish that has mercury in it, the human body has no way of getting it out. So you get sick. More than likely, you'll get one of the 7 critical degenerative diseases that die. And this, all their honor and their awards, have given the director of fisheries specific instruction to bury that report. And it was. But it was leaked to us. It was leaked by a member inside the fisheries department who was offended by the fact that this is critical information. So when you have a government doing things like that, it more resembles cannibalism of Idi Amin, where you're allowing citizens to be devoured by the oil and gas sector who are discharging the mercury in their drilling liquids. And listen, there's so much wrong that we must search and find right and promote right.
But Mr. Bood, if I may ask, this doesn't sound something that the FFOS would be focusing on. This sounds as though it's something more personal for you and you're using the umbrella of the FFOS.
Yes, certainly it would sound like that. It would sound like that to you don't know the FFOS. It would sound like that. But to me, who live inside the FFOS, every issue of national importance, every issue of integrity, every issue of what is right and what is wrong, you must remember that the tail does not lead the head. You see, you know, there is consensus about the issues that the West faces, and there are several fishermen who are aggrieved and offended by publicizing facts of what we have discovered about the safety of our country, the fact that we have no Coast Guard, the fact that anything can come on sea at any time into our country. There are many fishermen who are involved in the movement of, there are many people who don't want the truth to be told. So do I lead an organization by letting the tail lead the head? As risky as it is, the truth must be told. It must be. And many people are offended by it. I would say it openly to everyone that the bluefish, the ones that live on the surface, are migratory. They are not affected by the heavy matter that gets into the food chain by sinking to the bottom. So that when we make the comment about the safety of consuming fish in the Gulf of Paria, we are speaking about the bottom-dwelling fish. And that is a fact. The university professor who we commissioned and paid good, hard-earned money, the university professor that published a report on the correlation between eating bottom-dwelling fish in the Gulf of Paria and getting cancer, was sent on early retirement. Within 2 months of publication of the report, a $27 million laboratory was dismantled. The funding for that laboratory was taxpayers' money. The Green Fund paid for the UTT environmental laboratory to monitor environmental issues. But you award the Prime Minister an honorary doctorate. Well, I congratulate Dr. Rowley. I congratulate him, absolutely from the bottom of my heart. But I'm simply asking, what is the system that you have used to determine this marriage? Likewise?
From your eyes, from your standpoint, what would you say are Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's achievements? From the position of Gary Aboud, what are the Prime Minister's achievements?
Well, he made promises to the nation that he would not cruise back, and then lied and cruised it. And there's a string of issues like he has insulted people, many people, over many years, and I'm not going to give you in the worst way by calling them names like jackass, and that is deplorable as a statesman and a leader. I am not a statesman and a leader, and I don't call anybody a name of a mute. That's not right. That is not humane. He has destroyed the Procurement Act. That is unforgivable, knowing the amount of corruption that our country is plagued with. But the greatest thing that he has done, and something that we take as a feather in our cap, and something that many of the fishermen could not understand and did not support us when we made a strong and clear decision to become involved in commentary and lobbying on the minuscule, secret, offensive and insulting royalties that the oil and gas sector were paying our country, and that has been a 25-year battle for us. He amended it so that companies that were paying 1 and 2 and less than 3% in royalties to our country today has standardized and paid 12.5%. It's still half of the world average of what is paid in royalties by the oil and gas sector when they suck our non-renewable wealth, our God-given wealth out of our earth. But it's still as much as 10 times as what we were getting under all the previous governments. So that is a great thing.
Mr. Aboud, I don't have, in fact, I'm more or less out of time, but I have to ask you in about a minute or less, if you can answer. How does one separate the role of politician from activist?
In the world of public life, from the moment you make a comment in the public interest or represent a single soul, human or non-human, because I believe that in the animal and insect kingdom, we are all brothers and sisters and we are all equal in the eyes of God. So we have to respect every form of life. And you will find that in every religion. From the time you speak about something that is not of your private and personal benefit, you enter into the world of politics. But I've been asked by several of the new political parties to join them. I've been asked, but I'm not interested in public office, my friend. I'm not doing what I do for public office. I'm not doing, and it's been 25 years, and we've made a very, very small contribution. And personally speaking, I don't feel I have earned any award or any accreditation, so I'm relieved not to have been awarded. I don't feel proud of my life that I have contributed nearly enough of what I have set out to do in terms of helping our country and helping our people who are suffering.
Well, sir, that's where we'll have to end it, unfortunately. We're more or less out of time, but thank you very much for sharing your journey to work with us this morning and for the time to give us your thoughts and opinions on this matter.
Well, it's been a year since I've spoken to you.
It's been over a year.
I want to thank you for your public service of bringing truth to the surface and your courage in having so many people interviewed, and wish you and your station and your audience every blessing today and always, every good thing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. All the best, and same to you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gary Abuda, the Corporate Secretary of Fishermen and Friends of the Sea. Well, that's where we'll have to end it for AM Prime, but thank you very much for joining me, and in this week ahead, well, I can only wish you the very best. I must admit, it's rather scary the times that we're living in, and the fair fact is very much alive. I don't know what more I can say to you except just to wish you a good day ahead, maybe a productive one, and as always, try and be the bigger person, mature, rational, respectful, polite. It's simply a matter of trying to make TNT a bit sweeter via our own contributions to society. But thank you for starting your day with me as always, and I'll see you again tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I'm Keaton Shaw. Bye-bye.
WESN.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival begins on Friday, May 26th with Movie Night. 7 p.m. Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. This year features the local hit movie, Hero, directed by Francis Solomon. Come see the story of local justice, Ulrich Cross. Join us at North Coast Jazz Family Night. May 26th, 7 p.m. Bring your cooler, bring your blanket, bring your family. North Coast Jazz. Born here, played here. North Coast Jazz is sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Visit Trinidad, and the National Lotteries Control Board.
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the content capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish. I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
His nephew, and also of the intelligence services resignation because of top and prominent politicians, including leader of the Basokinal, a rival of Mitsotakis, was apparently surveilled with eavesdropping apps being installed on his phone, as well as when he said he'd be tight on migration, these illegal pushbacks, these extrajudicial deportations of migrants is not what the EU had in mind, and that's why we're hearing about reports that are surfacing condemning the egregious threat to the rule of law under his administration, a very worrying aspect of New Democracy, but one that was not on the mind of the Greek electorate yesterday casting its vote.
Natalie Savarikis reporting from Athens. Now, Meta has been hit with a record $1.3 billion privacy fine. The parent group of Facebook and Instagram was also ordered to stop sending EU user data to the U.S. by October. This is the latest twist in a decade-long case sparked by fears from the U.S. of cyber snooping. For the very latest, let's bring in France 24's Dave Keating in Brussels. Dave, first of all, give us the details on the decision.
Well, this is the largest fine ever levied on the basis of the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. This fine of 1.2 billion euros is not the first fine that a regulator has levied against Meta, but it is the largest. Meta has actually had a number of other fines on the basis of GDPR over the past couple years from the Irish authority, but the only fine on the basis of GDPR that has come even close to this is the fine by Luxembourg against Amazon for 746 million euros. Now, basically, what the regulator is ruling here is that the basis on which Facebook and Instagram have been transporting their data to the United States does not comply with EU law. And this goes all back to a 2020 ruling by the European Court of Justice. Before then, they had found this regulatory agreement called Privacy Shield, in which the EU authorities deemed the the U.S. authorities to be respecting data privacy enough that they could comply with GDPR. The ECJ, the EU's top court, ruled in 2020, no, the U.S. provisions are not enough. This does not comply with GDPR. Since then, Brussels and Washington have been in negotiations trying to find a replacement for Privacy Shield, but they've been unable to. And in the meantime, these big American tech companies like Meta have been still using the provisions under Privacy Shield. So this ruling says you can't be basing your actions here on a law that no longer exists, that was struck down. Now, Facebook's head Nick Clegg, who is also the former Deputy Prime Minister of the UK, came out with a statement saying that this ruling was dangerous, that it sets a bad precedent for other American companies operating in the EU. He said Facebook will appeal. However, he said Facebook and Instagram are not going to disappear overnight right now. However, the company is still maintaining the threat that they might pull out of Europe entirely over these laws. Essentially, they have until November to come up with a solution here. Either the EU and US authorities need to come up with some kind of replacement for Privacy Shield, or Facebook and Instagram may be gone from our computer screens and mobile devices by then. At least that's what Facebook and Instagram are threatening. However, the credibility of that is not quite clear.
Now, interestingly, the Irish regulator said it didn't agree with the decision, but felt that it had to go along with it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird situation because at the same time that the Irish Data Protection Commission was coming out with this ruling, they're also saying, we don't agree with this ruling. Essentially, they were made to do this by the other EU regulators by whom they were essentially outvoted, particularly the data regulators of France, Germany, Austria all said, you need to fine Meta on this because they cannot be citing a law that is not on the books anymore as the provision by which they are transferring data. Now, this is a long-running story with Ireland, and really, as much as this is a conflict between Brussels and Washington, it's also a conflict between Brussels and Dublin. Ireland has for long now invited these American tech companies into the country. For that, they've run afoul with the EU on two issues. One is data privacy, but the other is tax, and these accusations of tax dodging. Irish authorities have also had to claw back taxes from these big American tech companies, and it's the same pattern there. When they do it, they say, we don't agree with this, but we're being made to do this by the EU. So this is something certainly that might help the appeal of Meta, the fact that the very authority which levied this fine doesn't agree with the fine. But I think everybody here is hoping that some kind of solution is found in the next months, because if no solution is found by November, this could get very ugly, and Dublin is going to be very much caught in the middle.
Okay, Dave, thanks for that. From 24's Dave Keating there in Brussels. Now in the Philippines, a massive fire has torn through the historic post office building in Manila. 7 people were hurt in the flames that destroyed the nearly 100-year-old landmark in the capital. The fire started before midnight in the basement of the building and was brought under control Monday morning, more than 7 hours after it began. An investigation is now underway to determine the cause. And in Sudan, a week-long ceasefire is set to come into effect this Monday evening after the country's military and paramilitary rapid support forces signed a deal over the weekend. Over the past 5 weeks, hundreds of thousands of residents are said to have left their homes, with many attempting to flee abroad. James Vicina explains.
Overseen by Washington and Riyadh, signed in Jeddah, the latest ceasefire is bringing hope that there could be a pause in the fighting in Khartoum.
It's a 7-day ceasefire that will automatically be renewed until we reach a permanent ceasefire through the mechanisms that we will discuss in the coming days. We're aiming for trust between the parties and for Sudanese citizens to get better access to humanitarian services.
Previous truces have all been ignored, but this time the two parties have actually signed the agreement, set to take effect on Monday evening at 9:45 p.m. local time. The ceasefire will be closely monitored by the United States and Saudi Arabia, as fighting between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces has driven over 600,000 people away from their homes. Many are fleeing to neighbouring countries like Chad. Some are living in camps like this woman, whose village, she says, was attacked by a militia.
62 people died in that attack. We fled and crossed over into Chad. The men went back into the village to collect the things that were not destroyed by the Janjaweed. Out of those men, 11 were captured by the militia. They cut off their arms, their legs, and gouged out their eyes.
Run by the United Nations for the past 20 years, this camp can host 28,000 refugees. 10,000 extra spaces will be built over the next weeks.
We have so far put services, like there's family shelters for to host, let's say, 2,000 refugees. But the construction of the family shelters is still ongoing. We have also put, established water infrastructure and sanitation.
A way of helping these refugees get access to some of the health and care they need, as the camp will remain their home for the unseeable future.
The president of Brazil has slammed racist abuse aimed at Real Madrid football star Vinicius Jr. That's after the Brazilian player was targeted during a Spanish league match at Valencia. The game was temporarily stopped after he said a fan behind one of the goals began insulting him. And it ended up being Junior who suffered the consequences. 97 minutes into the game, he was suspended for an altercation with another player, a reaction his coach said was understandable given the circumstances. Peter O'Brien has more.
Outrage at racism in Spanish football reached new levels on Sunday as Brazil's president condemned the continued abuse of Real Madrid star Vinicius Jr.
It is not fair that a poor boy who succeeded in life and is potentially becoming one of the best players in the world, certainly the best at Real Madrid, is attacked in every stadium he plays in.
In an away match, a Valencia fan shouted slurs at the Brazilian international forward. Play resumed 10 minutes after an announcement calling for racist insults to stop. Real Madrid have filed a legal complaint, while Vinicius put out a statement saying that a championship that once belonged to great players now belongs to racists. The president of La Liga, Javier Tebas, responded that Vinicius needed to inform himself properly, complaining that the footballer hadn't turned up to 2 meetings about what they're doing to combat racism. Real Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti agrees with his player, saying the league isn't doing enough.
To think about taking a player off because of racism has never happened to me. The Spanish league has a problem, not Vinicius. Vinicius is the victim of a very serious problem.
La Liga has lodged complaints to Spanish authorities about the repeated racism suffered by Vinicius. Meanwhile, Spanish police are investigating a hate crime after fans of rival club Atletico Madrid hung an effigy of Vinicius outside Real Madrid's training ground.
Last week, Turkey targeted the Iraqi province of Sinjar with drone strikes, more specifically positions of a Yazidi armed group affiliated with the Kurdish Workers' Party. The renewed violence has complicated the return of exiled Yazidis who had fled a genocide carried out by the Islamic State group. Marie-Charlotte Roupi and Josh Vardy have this report.
The city of Sinjar cannot forget. These hillside homes still bear the marks of the violence led by the Islamic State group in the region. 400,000 people lived in Sinjar before 2014. 9 years after the genocide perpetrated against the Yazidi minority, only 150,000 have returned.
I returned in 2017. First we went to Sinoon and we stayed in a house for almost a year. The house was rented and we couldn't afford it, so we came back here.
Not far from the ruins of their old home, this family of 9 now lives in 2 narrow rooms, rebuilt with the help of NGOs.
We left the camp because it was difficult there too. Every day someone's tent burned down and we didn't belong there. It was very difficult. In the past we used to have livestock here, but even that has gone now, and without rain it's not possible. Without any salary or income it's difficult to live here. There is no electricity, so we are forced to buy diesel for generators, which is expensive.
The signing of the Sinjar Agreement in 2020 between Baghdad and Kurdish authorities promised reconstruction, but access to public services in the province remains limited. Local and international aid initiatives have to fill the gap. A French-funded hospital is being built at the entrance to the town.
All healthcare centres in Sinjar provide only primary healthcare services. The centre here includes operation rooms, beds and all necessary medical equipment and tools.
Construction is due to be completed by the end of the year, providing 25 beds, 2 operating theatres and a delivery room. Project managers hope it will convince former residents to return.
Before this hospital project, if someone from Sinjar got sick or needed surgery, they would have to drive 1.5 to 2 hours to reach Tel Afar or Mosul.
Despite these efforts, returning to Sinjar comes at a price for most Yazidis. The genocide orchestrated by the Islamic State group left deep scars. This long-oppressed religious minority now says the lack of action from Iraqi authorities shows they are being ignored.
As you can see, the second floor of the house was burnt.
Lacking any other options, Sadoun and his family moved back here in December 2020.
It quickly became difficult because every day I go to work, I pass by a mass grave on the street. This is really hard to confront and reminds me of what took place here every day. As the young men of Sinjar, we all need to shoulder our responsibilities and try to save the area. What we need now is support for a program to keep peace in the area, and we need to have one ruling authority that controls the area and not several different factions.
No one feels free to go into too much detail about the current security situation. The Iraqi army is still fighting Yazidi militia for control of Sinjar. The latter fought the Islamic State group in 2014 alongside the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, and now refuse to hand over control of the province. Last year, local violence drove several thousand residents to leave once again. About 15 families found refuge at this camp, Mam Rashan, near Dohuk.
I went back to Shingal. There were skirmishes and the situation wasn't good. So I came back to the camp. We found ourselves in the middle of that battle. Nobody knew what was going on. If somebody shot at my house, I wouldn't know who to complain to. Where would I go? To the Iraqi army or to the others? To the PKK? You don't know who's in charge of the area. There's nobody. So that's why I lost hope. And I won't go back to Shingal.
His neighbor Hayam is not so forthright, but she does say she wants guarantees from the Iraqi authorities and the Kurds.
I'm one of those who came back 6 years ago, but all our work there was again all in vain. Until the authorities fully recognize the genocide, we can't return. We won't go back.
The Yazidis' demand for the Iraqi authorities to recognize the genocide would give all families the right to compensation. But the authorities are currently only promising negotiations to implement the 2020 agreement. A ministerial decree last December did, however, give them back the right to property, which had been taken away in 1975 during a campaign of Arabization. It's a small glimmer of hope. This family could claim a piece of land that's currently state property, but they remain extremely reluctant to return.
You know, the Cannes Film Festival is in full swing, and your update from the French Riviera is on the way in 15 minutes' time. You'll get the latest on the much-hyped competition film Four Daughters, where actors and real people reenact the past to try to understand why 2 young women left Tunisia to fight for the Islamic State group. That's just after your World News Update with Nadia Massi, after this.
France 24, more than ever before, is your window onto the world.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
From a distance, it looks like a picture postcard. But if you look closer, Hollow Island still bears the scars of a decades-long nightmare, from which it is only now emerging. Situated in the south of the Philippines, it was the stronghold of one of the most violent Islamist separatist groups in the world, Abu Sayyaf, whose assassinations, kidnapping and piracy have left an impact that will be felt for years.
They're just anywhere, and they're just waiting as if you're a prey.
Despite everything, a desire for peace is growing on the island, bringing hope of a better future.
If you really want peace, you should start with the children. That came from Mahatma Gandhi.
Watch Hollow Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.
Hello, you're watching France 24 live from Paris. I'm Nadia Massi. Here's what's coming up this hour. The Wagner mercenary group says Bakhmut has fallen into Russian hands, while Ukraine insists it still has pockets of control inside the devastated city. Coming up, the latest from our Ukraine correspondent, Gulliver Cragg. French police begin demolishing housing slums on the Indian Ocean island of Mayotte, part of a controversial operation against illegal immigration. In total, 1,000 homes are slated to be destroyed. And Greek politics in limbo. Prime Minister Mitsotakis seeking a second election after winning a first vote, but without enough support for a ruling majority.
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the content capital.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival begins on Friday, May 26th with Movie Night. 7 p.m. Festival Grounds, Blanchy-Shares. This year features the local hit movie, Hero, directed by Francis Solomon. Come see the story of local justice, Ulrich Cross. Join us at North Coast Jazz Family Night. May 26th, 7 p.m. Bring your cooler, bring your blanket, bring your family. North Coast Jazz. Born here, played here. North Coast Jazz is sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Visit Trinidad, and the National Lotteries Control Board.
WESN.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Talking Points here on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. I hope you had a great weekend and I hope you're enjoying this lovely weather this morning. It's better than the rains. Actually, it is rain. It's better than the sun that we've faced over the last few months, and it's certainly a welcome considering the heat. I just hope that given the heavy rainfall that is expected, everybody's safe and secure. You know what I mean. Anyway, I'm joined by my co-host and colleagues alongside me this morning. Sean Michael Small, how was your weekend?
You know, it was actually kind of ironic that it rained this morning, because in the middle of the night, I had just enough time to get just enough sleep until what seemed to be a load-sharing power outage in my area happened. So I think I lost power for an hour to an hour and a half. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't notice any TN-Tech trucks outside having to do any repairs, and it did not rain. So the heat, even at 3 in the morning, the heat was, let's just say, somewhat unbearable.
Well, it's been very still, and it's a dry, sticky heat.
Yes, very still. There was no wind at all.
Actually, even this morning when I woke up, and I was expecting to wake up to some rain, because across the weekend there was quite a bit of downpours. In fact, funny enough, yesterday there was a bit of flood where I actually reside. I was expecting rain this morning. I woke up to just, well, the sun rising. Beautiful look of the sun rising. But I was so disappointed. Anyway, I look forward to the mornings when the rain starts, because when you wake up and you go in that shower and the cold water hits you, it's that's one way to wake up.
The cold water hits you. Oh, yeah. Oh.
I'm doing my best not to bathe in hot water. I'm actually just utilizing the cold water. Yeah, and it's good. It's actually very good. I think the warm water puts you back to sleep.
If you want to torture yourself, you go right ahead.
I like cold water.
Folks, while my co-host tries to convince himself of his love of cold showers, let's go with the daily review. And this is something that you pointed out. It was not on my radar over the weekend. I tend to... crime, it's a love-hate relationship with crime. The more you read about it, the more depressing it is. But kudos to you, because actually, what you could say, it's almost like 2 weekends in a row now. We got good news, and this is an even larger cocaine bust happening on our shores with the aid of international partners, worth over 234 million, I believe, TT dollars.
Kudos to the Toronto Police Service. I don't think, as pointed out before, it's always easy to highlight the negative, and I'm glad we're able to highlight the positive this morning. It is being said it's the largest drug bust in TNT. Notice they refrained from using the word history, at least based off of what I've read. But nevertheless, it's very good news, and I hope this continues. The thing is that you're cleaning up the streets of drugs, because it is suggested it was on its way to the United States of America, as the TPS was working with foreign agencies to deal with this particular drug hole. But if you're cleaning the drugs up the street, what is it going to lead to? Is it going to lead to further escalations in terms of war? Is the TPS prepared to deal with that? It's a whole other conversation to have, but overall, generally speaking, I will not take away the credit from the TPS in terms of their work and operations done. I can only hope, though, that though we were aided by foreign agencies, that we're continuing to work on our intelligence gathering here, and so we can raise the level of proactive measures to ensure that situations are prevented from happening. In this particular instance, yes, it seems to be the case.
The only risk I think would be potentially any reprisals against officers involved, right? Especially if this becomes more regular, then that becomes more and more of a concern. But as it stands right now, I mean, we're not even necessarily too sure who directly owned the cocaine, to say. If it was being, if this was just the waypoint to move up the islands, up the chain, up to North America, then it might not have necessarily have been under the direct ownership of anybody down here. So I'm not even sure if it'll have any immediate consequences down here for that sort of thing. The other thing with regards to this, that, I mean, it is small, but notice usually when we see that drugs were interdicted or guns were interdicted, they get it at the port, they find it in a container, nobody's arrested. In this case, they actually managed to get it in transit on our shores, with suspects. So the potential of, okay, interrogating them and trying to find out more about the operation that they're a part of. Not that it's going to be easy and that they will automatically answer questions and give up all the information, but at least there's an arrest to go with it now. This is not just when you get interdictions of smuggling at the ports or whatever, one has to ask, is this, they're just throwing us a bone, some marijuana here, a few handguns there, right? We don't arrest anybody, so it's almost like if it's a decoy to let the bigger shipment go through. But one could argue this shipment is a bit too big to be much of a decoy looking to try to get something. If there's a bigger shipment going through at the same time, I'll be very surprised.
Us in our position, in our role, not make it a decoy. I think that there are still many questions, there are still many concerns, but generally speaking, I think any work on the part of the TTPS to try and, cleanup acts of this sort, it should be given the credit, and we should give the TTPS our support in that regard. I mean, I still have my concerns. Don't get me wrong, I still have very many issues with respect to the TTPS, and as much as they're preaching to us about, well, we're doing this, we're doing that, and it's very difficult for us to actually, clean up all rogue officers or even bad officers, I still have my issues.
I believe there's a regional summit, and that's one of the topics, bad officers.
Yes. So, going forward, I can only hope that this is just one step in the right direction, and I can only hope it leads to further operations in which we can clean up drugs, guns, ammunitions, and even take people off the streets. Look at, for example, look at the memorandum from TT Post circulating where you cannot wear, or you should not wear certain numbers because they're affiliated with gangs. That's absolutely atrocious that you now have to tell your members of staff not to do that. Because what we're doing is that we're only giving power to the gangs. There have been signs posted, look, welcome to, I've seen it circulating on social media, welcome to this gang area, with arrows pointed up. The thing is, if you have an understanding or there's enough intelligence to suggest these numbers are affiliated with the gangs, or these are the areas where the gangs are. Again, am I stupid? Am I daft? I don't know if I am any of those things. Maybe you, the viewer, can point it out if that is the case. But imagine now in this day and age, the citizens and the man on the streets and the people working actually being productive or even doing something good. Now actually have to restrict themselves because of the possibility of being associated with a gang.
Therein lies the other, or the flip side to this. To what extent is this due to the help of international and regional partners? With that said, however, part of the issue is the amount of large amounts of cash that's coming in because of the drug trade. And that cash, of course, it makes it easier to not just encourage people to break the law, right, but also to buy corruption, wherever it may be, whoever it might be, right, whether it's a public official, a police officer, a judge, according to the Minister of National Security, etc., etc. And we would have to rely, because that part of the problem is beyond, the scope is probably too big for any one small island nation to deal with. So some people might say, hey, well, it was only because we got help. Well, with regards to drug smuggling at this scale, which is probably not meant to just sell within our borders, yeah, that was a given that we were going to need the help anyway. So at least we could hope that that part of the apparatus is working, because if it does, it could choke the money out of our criminal systems here internally.
I think we have, again, not taking away any credit to the TTPS and the work of foreign agencies, I firmly believe that it seems as though, because of where we are and what we're seeing, I think we're actually allowing criminals to just continue living on with their lives and doing whatever they want to do. I think to a certain extent we have given them that power. We have failed not only as a nation, because it's not only the TTPS to blame and those in authority. I mean, it's even within the household. You know that this is wrong. You know that this is illegal, right? 5 men robbed a Unipet gas station in Santa Cruz. Not one of them would say, listen fellas, this is wrong, we shouldn't do this. No, nobody cares anymore. Nobody's actually doing their part or their job. And what has become of it is that we're just living in fear because of it. We've given criminals a certain power. And the TTPS, I don't think they're powerless, I don't think the TTPS is powerless. I think to a certain extent the TTPS, I think they just, to a certain degree, in many instances, don't care. I get that impression, based off of my experiences as well.
I'll say this, I think you're right. Again, I believe we took the excuse for granted. Oh, it's gangsters killing gangsters, when the murder rate started to climb. And now that I reached this point, one crime that I did take note of, the widow of somebody murdered 3 years before, she was murdered now in I believe a mini mart in Carenage.
It's a liquor mart, actually.
Or a liquor mart,
yeah.
right? And it seemed as though, I mean, I don't necessarily know what a 69-year-old woman could be doing to get herself assassinated. So the brutality of the murder confuses me, and I am right there with you on both of your points. We took it for granted when we could have put a clamp on it, and now the Pandora's box is open. When I say way back when,
we are taking it for granted now, Sean.
And no, we're still, but my point is the foundation is it's difficult now to put the genie back in the bottle.
Put it this way.
When we've allowed it out. And that's the result. These sorts of murders are the results with regards to just the brutality of it. That doesn't make sense. And it's not the first time for the year we've had murders where we're left puzzled.
The Trans-Tobago Police Service, right? It's interesting how this conversation has evolved. We started off giving credit to the TPS, and now we're taking a look at their flaws, and that's absolutely fine. But I quicker see the police service at a crime scene, at a murder scene, after wrong has been committed, rather than police operations taking place to try and clean up the situation. There was a police fest last week it's in Dandan and Kelly Village, and I gave them applause. I said, "This is excellent, good work." This entire incident with train line and that area becoming such a criminal hotspot. Yeah. Even one incident that took place in Kirrip, a coconut vendor was shot in broad daylight in Kirrip on Saturday morning. Right outside
this is why I try not to follow the crime, the murders on the weekend.
The point is, if it is the police service that are doing operations like what they did in Kelly Village, right, then I want to see more of that. Because I would want to see officers responding rather than just showing up to a crime scene. I rather that take place. I rather that happening.
Proactive.
Right. Because you're not going to clean up everything, and you're not going to clean it up overnight.
Well,
right. But the thing is, I am not necessarily seeing things being done as the TTPS has preached. And beyond that, we've heard the TTPS has the resources. I mean, people within the TTPS have said this. They have the resources. It's just the management of that resource.
All right,
those resources.
I do want to move on, but I'll just say, I don't think it's just the management of resources. I think it's similar to other areas of the public service. You might have so many officers on the books, but how many of them actually are willing to do the work? We know that there are at least a minority, maybe even a majority, that genuinely want to get the work done. But I'm pretty certain, this is just an assumption, folks, this is just speculation, but I'm pretty certain there's a few bad apples there that either they don't want to work or they're actively working against. But
and by the way, when the Minister of National Security said that criminals have friends everywhere, and he was specific in saying, he wasn't entirely wrong. Do you recall a couple of years ago when a minister was being sworn in at President's house, a certain individual stood up next to her? So no, the point is, listen, if you take one look at that as an example as to what is you don't know what's happening now in TNT? You really don't know what's happening now in TNT? I hope our memory is not short-sighted.
It's interesting the implications that politicians don't actually understand with their own words. They think they're just throwing barbs here at the side, but I mean, pot calling kettle black indirectly. The second story I wanted to get into, and you made the point that this might be too big, but just your initial thoughts. CXC wants to go fully online. They're confident about doing it with multiple choice. And I believe that their paper twos or written assessments, they also want to do that as well. I am generally skeptical with regards to the security of trying to do exams online.
We're not ready for it. We're not ready for it. We don't have... I'm not speaking about...
I think I know where you're going, with broadband?
Yeah, not only that. I think generally, I can only speak for TNT. I don't know what is the situation across the islands.
Well, I think other islands share this issue.
I don't think we have the ICT infrastructure for this. I don't think so. And given that how, there's concerns with AI now, and even people during exams could just Google certain things, I'm not entirely... I think because we have not a fully capable in terms of ICT infrastructure, a reliable internet connection, just that alone, I am not prepared to take that risk to have these exams fully online as yet. I think CXC are trying to develop it, but let us not rush into it, right? The world is moving forward in terms of technology, but not at least not TNT as yet. At least not TNT as yet. So the thing is, they might say, listen, it's also going to help with leaks, because recently there was this story about the mass people being leaked. But even so, online, teenagers, Sean, people younger than us could probably hack into systems now. Does CXC even have a secure enough system where they can have all these papers online?
I'm not sure if the exams will be done at home. That's the implication, because I don't think we have enough machines, and it's not as though you could have like some students do the exam now and do it on a shift where, you know, people go into the computer lab at scheduled times. So it implies heavily that it's going to be done at home, right? Which I just think there's a whole host of things that could go wrong, and it has to be perfect. Otherwise, keep it in pen and pencil and paper in the classroom, because you don't want, you see, the problem is when there is subjective accusations. Now, we don't exactly know what happened, and there was a glitch, and we're not confident, was it a glitch, or did the student take advantage of the glitch? And then at some point, somebody will be at the center of some sensational story that's going to ruin their life because we don't have it perfect.
I am not against us trying to push in terms of technological advancement. However, at this point in time, I will say stick to the paper-based exams. Let's stick to it, because even it, and that is a true test as far as I'm concerned. Sitting down in your exam room, writing a paper, not having any sort of help around you.
I will say this though, there's a big difference between typing and writing, and how many people now write a paper by hand with regards to outside of an exam. That's the only thing. That part, because for me, my foray into tertiary education, the second and third go around, was very much miserable. Miserable.
Some people cannot even write a standard email properly. The grammar is poor.
I'm talking about the physical.
Hold on. The grammar is poor. The structure is poor. What makes you think that they are capable of even writing a letter on paper? I mean,
but we're talking about students who are taking exams, who have long papers.
I know.
I'm just saying, last story. We have to take a break, but the minister made a comment that made me ask, because he was referencing flooding in America, where I believe they got like weeks of rainfall in 3 days. Is it that we have to just accept at some point flooding is going to be inevitable once we just have too much rain?
Flooding will be inevitable. I think that is not the issue. I think how long it takes for floodwaters to run off is the issue. Flooding will always be a problem here in TNT. It's how long it takes for floodwaters to actually, run off. I'll be honest with you. I actually have seen works done by the Ministry of Works and Transport as it relates to desilting. I've seen them widening rivers and whatnot, but at the same time, you widen the river, the depth of the river remains, and then all of a sudden, it just cuts off. It's an embankment. There's actually no flow off. So once it fills, it's going to overflow. Right? We don't even have proper drainage. Town and country planning has always been an issue, and it continues to be an issue. So as much as we're telling people, listen, don't build on riverbanks and all that, town and country planning, local government, let's be real. Furthermore, my final point on this entire situation, Sean, is a simple little thing. We don't even enforce littering fines or enforcing the law and order as it relates to littering. People continue to do it. We'll always have issues with flooding here in TNT.
Folks, we're over time, but therein lies the thought. Is it always the fault of the authorities, or well, just sometimes there's too much rain? We'll leave that for now. We have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get our first set of guests here to speak about, well, student safety. It's something that was not necessarily on my radar, but I wonder how much more concerns we could have with regards to crime. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point on WESN, your content capital.
The MG Showroom has an SUV for your personality with multiple features that will have you driving in comfort and style. MG gives you the most miles, and now you can own your brand new MG for as little as $85 a day. I am Trisha Burke from Massey Motors. Contact me to drive away with your MG today.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
The countdown has started for the premier jazz show of the season. Get your tickets for North Coast Jazz. Festival grounds, Lachiches. Enjoy a beautiful evening of fantastic music together with your friends. Be mesmerized and captivated by the music of our top local entertainers and musicians, including BP Renegades, Ace Panis and Arranger, Dubon Stewart, Chrison Joseph, Sitarist Extraordinaire, Mungo Patterson, Stacy Silvers, Gospel Queen Nisa, backing band led by Magic Finger guitarist Dean Williams. Also, Brass to the World, featuring 2 iconic superstars Ronnie McIntosh and Superblue, plus much more. Born here and played here. North Coast Jazz, Saturday, 27th May at Festival Grounds, Lachiches. Showtime, 3:30 p.m. Tickets already on sale at Kenny's Sports Centers. Extra Foods, Crosby St. James, Mart's Liquor Palace, Diego Martin Main Road, WESN, Gallagher Street, Athletes by the Park, and IslandEatTickets.com. For more info, call 331-4285. Get ready for North Coast Jazz.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
what is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And we are joined once again by members of QRC, this time with the She's Royal program, a program that is centered around speaking about and educating young men primarily about domestic violence. Usually it's about men inflicting violence on women, but in this case, this year, or at least in this event, they're looking to also speak to the fact about the risk of males being victims in domestic violence, but also with regards to the general environment we find ourselves in TNT. So we are joined this morning by, first of all, he is Akash Raghu, student committee member of She's Royal, and a Form 4 student, so now going into that difficult time of life.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
And of course, Miss Carla Brown, She's Royal Sorry? Brian. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm reading it here and I got it wrong. Miss Carla Bryan, She's Royal Chairperson and the head of the business department of QRC. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Yes. Good morning.
So first off, we have to ask. Usually, of course, She's Royal. It's in the name. It's obvious. You all decided to break the mold of your own brand. I guess because at the end of the day, you all have male students. So some consideration now. Usually, everybody thinks domestic violence as males inflicting violence on women. Yes. But you all are giving some consideration to your students who might end up being victims.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. All right. So as the name says, She's Royal, right? I always say, there's no she without he. There's he and she together, right? So while we want to focus on gender-based violence, male towards female, we also have to recognize that, the males are victims as well. And we don't want to leave them by the side. We want to be able to take care of their needs as well.
Yes.
So.
And as of now, in the world right now, there's a lot of... These statistics might show that mainly it's male to female, but we also have to come to realization that many men and young boys are also inflicted, whether the prosecutor might be, or the perpetrator might be a male or a female. So they have to become aware of their surroundings and way in which they can recognize this form of gender-based violence or abuse or harassment and be able to safeguard themselves on technology, in the physical environment, yes. And even in school sometimes. How crucial is it for programs like this to begin at such an early age of one's life, given that how society is becoming? But beyond that, what has the reception been like from your fellow students? Well, I think that targeting the younger generation, which is mainly adolescent groups, is where the problem needs to be resolved. Because big people, they might take heed, but they mightn't decide to bring about change, especially because of generational stigmas, meaning that, let's give an example, that if a boy or a man is sexually abused or physically abused or experiences some form of gender-based violence and he decides to report that to some form of authority, he might be ridiculed or made fun of, and in a society like Trinidad and Tobago, that is to happen in most cases. So targeting the younger generation, that might change that stigma, and that might help bring about the change that we so desperately need in this world right now. So targeting the younger generation, especially young males, can help to promote healthy masculinity and help them to be educated about forms of gender-based violence, ways in which it can be prevented, it can be treated with, whether it's towards them or somebody who they might know. Ms. Bryan, is this also a part of an effort to try and break the stigmas associated with masculinity, as Akash just mentioned, even at times where you have instances of males being abused but wanting to remain silent because of how society could be? Is it also trying to break that stigma and saying, listen, if you are a victim, you need to speak out?
Yes, I agree. It is an attempt, right? Because once males are aware, all right, it's okay to, you have feelings, you have emotions just like females, then you'd be able to better treat with it, right? So we would, go through topics like, toxic masculinity and, and so on. And I just want to go back a bit to the question that you posed to Akash. I would say that discussion should even start as early as primary school. I mean, we're a secondary school, so we are doing what we can with our young men. But in order to mold and shape mindsets, education plays a significant role in that regard. So, yes.
Is it that we kind of take it for granted? Because we're seeing crime and violence escalate, and we're taking it for granted that, well, things sort itself out, these kids should be okay. But then now, by the time you get them, you have to deal with a half-molded product trying to reverse what was done, if anything bad was done?
Correct. So that is why I'm saying you should start as early as possible. I would say primary school, to start to educate and sensitize young children about these issues, right? Because remember, they are growing up in homes where they might be experiencing it.
Yes.
And if they understand that this is not normal, then, we can see some hope and some change in the future.
With regards, so of course, gender-based violence, we're thinking male to female, female to male, but I think you mentioned or implied, what about parental, which it could be a mother figure or a father figure on the young men. Do you all have, what else in the program do you all have with regards to that? Do you all have anything to support with that as well?
Okay, well, we talk generally about gender-based violence, right? We don't classify whether it is parent to child or,
or intimate or a stranger
like
or
that.
anything like that. Because at the end of the day, violence is violence.
Right.
Yeah. Right, but I mean, the discussion would come up from time to time. Yes. We would have partnered with, other organizations that engage in similar stuff. Just a few weeks ago, they would have attended a forum about child sexual abuse and stuff like that. So that is where the adult to child would have come in. So they got exposure to that angle of things, right? But we don't, we just talk about it generally, so that students can be aware.
You brought up this thing about men have emotions as well.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that's something that we've totally ignored. It seems, and this thing about masculinity. Yes. Akash, let me ask you, generally speaking, men have emotions. There is a stigma associated with masculinity. There's this transition now when you're in high school. Masculinity, you have to be a big man, take this, take that, and whatnot. Is it that, are your peers, and this is generally speaking, not specific, but are they more and more open now to speaking about these things, or is it that there is still that sense? Still that generational stigma, as I said, because parents at home are not trying to discuss mental health and emotions, because you grow up here thinking you're the man, you have to be strong, you have to lead by example, and all of that is okay. But men also face problems, young boys also face challenges, whether it be stress with school, with relations, with any problems that you may have. And we don't get the idea that it's okay to express that, because we're accustomed to, well, crying is for guilt. If you're soft, here's a guilt. Here's a wasp boy, all of that, right? And that's what we need to break, because if it is that your
problem is so bad that some people even go to suicide and depression and even end up in mental hospitals and all of that, then it is important, it is necessary. Prevention is better than cure. So if it is that you teach your boys or your children that it's okay to express their thoughts and their emotions, whether it be with you or a trusted person, then that could promote healthy, proper mental health and proper emotional, dealing with your emotions in a healthy and in a good way that you wouldn't think of it of girly or feminine or,
Because it goes back, Ms. Bryan, to this entire program. And the efforts not, not only focus on breaking a certain stigma or mindset, but also the effects of such, so the psychology and even the focus on mental health about it. Do you think that more of these programs, QRC is certainly setting the trend, and this should be the way forward. And I mean, kudos to QRC, to the PTA, to the staff, to the students.
Yes.
Should more of this be done and more of such programs be promoted in schools?
Absolutely.
You think there'll be the participation or the willingness?
I think there would be willingness, right? But the challenge is to get the commitment, Thankfully, at QRC, we have a strong system in place. We have an adult committee comprising of, various stakeholders, the PTA, some members of the staff, and so on, as well as we have a student committee, which Akash is a member of, and the students would champion the cause, for this within their different classes and their different levels, right?
We've actually spoken about students and teachers.
Yes.
Excellent. What about parents and their involvement?
Well, that is what I said just now. We have the PTA. They are a big stakeholder. They support us in everything that we do. In fact, we have an event coming up this Friday, which the PTA is very much involved in, and they're very much supportive of us, right? Because a few months ago into the program, we actually had parents partner, fathers and sons partner to create content, videos, and so on the topic of gender-based violence, right? So the parents have a very much important role, a pivotal role to play, right? And it also helps in educating them as well on the topic of gender-based violence.
Right, and just coming back to this whole question about parents being involved, students being involved, teachers being involved, I think that highlights our theme this year, which is passion and compassion and community, which, the community part highlights this, which is that in order to make this change, we need to be collaborative with each other, with all aspects, and, such that how we collaborate with some other female institutions sometimes, and, with other forums, that is part of it, but we need a bigger change. We need it as a worldwide collaboration with everybody needs to realize that this could be a pandemic. And it needs to be addressed, and the change needs to be brought about. So.
Well, this Friday, the 26th, you have your second annual walk under the She's Royal banner from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Who is invited to participate?
All right, now this is a school event, right? So we have invited various stakeholders, other female schools within the Port of Spain area. And we also have our parents, the PTA is involved, and other civil society organizations, right? It's not open to the public per se, but we just want the public to be aware that we have in this event, so when they see us around, they can support by, honking their horns, and so on. They would see us wearing orange, all right, which is the color of hope. Towards a brighter future against gender-based violence. So this is what we are doing. We are going to make a statement, right? And we want the community and all of the stakeholders to be aware of this issue that needs to be dealt with. And the more people are aware of it, the greater the hope of change in the future.
Ms. Bryan, Mr. Raghu, for the incredible work that you guys are doing, contributing to the entire staff, the parents, the students at QRC. Thank you for this, and well done. And I hope that other schools and institutions take a lesson as well. Previously we spoke about the role of the PTA and how crucial it is, but student involvement, teacher involvement, parent involvement in subjects such as these, well done. Well done. Keep it up.
And I hope that there would be more programs like this one, because She's Royal has been going strong.
Yes.
But now it's to see more from other institutions.
Yes, yes. So that's the hope, you know. We have, as I said, partnered with other female schools in the Port of Spain area. All right. Once anyone is willing to be involved, we are open to getting that extra support and collaborating. We are very much open to that, because it is through collaboration we can grow stronger.
Well, well said, actually.
Yes.
Very well said. Ms. Bryan, thank you very much. Mr. Ragu, good luck in the next 4 years.
Thank you.
Well, 8 years, really.
No.
10.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
University is going to be the best years of your life. Trust me, make it that way. It will be. You know. Anyway, this is just the one hurdle, the obstacle that you have to get through. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much once more.
Thank you for having us.
Well, this Friday, if you get the opportunity, wear orange, drive around the savannah and honk your horn between 9 and 10 in the morning. The She's Royal Walk takes place. And it's through collaboration we can make a difference. Well said, Ms. Bryan. But for now, we have to take a break here on Talking Point. When we return, conversation continues.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order, or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment,
in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Hey beautiful people, Stacey Sobas here, inviting you to join me and a star-studded cast of artists for North Coast Jazz 2023. May 27th, Salman Hotroy Park Blanche shares. Get your tickets early. Gates open at 1 and you don't want to miss a thing. So make the road trip, because it's not just jazz, it's North Coast Jazz.
Festival grounds, La Chigeuse. Enjoy a beautiful evening of fantastic music together with your friends. Be mesmerized and captivated by the music of our top local entertainers and musicians, including BP Renegades, Ace Panis and Arranger, Duborn Stewart, Chrison Joseph, Sitarist Extraordinaire, Mungo Patterson, Stacey Sobers, Gospel Queen Nisa, backing band led by Magic Finger guitarist Dean Williams. Also, Brass to the World, featuring two iconic superstars Ronnie McIntosh and Superglue, plus much more. Born here and played here. North Coast Jazz, Saturday, 27th May at Festival Grounds, La Chigeuse. Showtime, 3:30 p.m. Tickets already on sale at Kenny's Sports Centers. Extra Foods, Crosby St. James, Mart's Liquor Palace, Dico Martin Main Road, WESN, Gallagher Street, Athletes by the Park, and IslandEatTickets.com. For more info, call 331-4285. Get ready for North Coast Jazz.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Sean and I are now joined by acting ASP Ashraf Ali. He's with us in studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. And a very rainy day today.
Yes, rainy day and bloody weekend.
Yes. Well, there's a little bit of irony today with the topics, because last week Monday, there was a cocaine bust. Kudos to the TTPS cocaine bust today. Last week Monday, you came to speak with regards to being vigilant on what it is your children are getting involved with, your big children. Now this week, it's about being vigilant about what it is going on with your small children.
And I want to say a sympathetic condolences to those family, to that family particularly, because when a situation like that takes place, and for those who are listening to us, we're speaking about the toddler who lost her life, unfortunately. It's a sad. It impacts not only that family, it impacts a lot of persons across, and we have persons who have actually, over the years, we had a lot of children who lost their lives in similar circumstances or incidents relating to, I want to say, it's not neglect, but when persons are not self-aware of the risk of certain things they do in your home, this might be a situation of that nature. The investigation is ongoing, but at the end of the day, whatever the decision is, that family has to face it, because they lost a loved one and lost a child.
Now, you're not giving a verdict on the case that it's not neglect. You're not saying that in this case.
I am not saying in neglect. I am just simply stating that when we as parents, we do things in our home, not understanding that there is a risk associated with certain things. I mean, growing up, I sure you have been in a small bucket by yourself.
Well, not by myself. I don't think. Of course, you're asking 30-something-year-old me what a 3-year-old me do. I can't say for sure, but not by myself.
When we had barrels catching rainwater I know as children, you go by the barrel, you've been dipping for rainwater, and sometimes you depending on the level, you're climbing up to see if you get some water. Those are risks that we're not understanding as children. They're not seeing the risk associated with that, any dangers and the hazards towards that. So they just see the water, and children like water. So in circumstances like this, I mean, and the rainy season is upon us. So one of the things that we have to look at safety, from a safety perspective, is that these vessels that we have outside your house that could catch water and leaving water on its own, and where children is involved, you have to be much more vigilant when it comes to those type of things.
I know that we are not laying any verdict. This is not our authority, and we are not in a position to do such. So my question is it's a general question. Do you, in your opinion, is it that children are having children, and that there are people out there who are just not mature, responsible enough to actually have children and look after children?
I would say the latter part of your statement. It's not children having children, but persons not understanding the responsibilities associated with having children. The additional responsibility, and the need to be much more self-aware that as a child, they will venture in things that they don't see the risk. A hot stove, right? Children could get burned on a stove. You may take off the stove understanding that the pot is hot, but a child may not even know that. And just put a hand towards it. There's a lot of things, a simple thing like when you iron, right, in your household. If you don't secure the iron and you have little children at home, they don't know, they might touch it. So these are some of the risks associated. And
that we take for granted.
It take for granted, and it's all part of safety. Safety in your home that results, and if the lack of safety in your home results in situations like this, where the police have to get involved to treat with a debt that no matter what decision, the final decision, the loss of a child will haunt these parents for the rest of their lives, and on the family, the trauma that they're going through.
I did not automatically think, just as a layman, negligence. My first instance was, I don't have kids of my own, but the children that are close family members to me, I started to like assess things, you know. Fortunately, I'm not the father, so I don't have to like have that burden on a 24/7 basis. But it's just one of those things where I'm not thinking, blame the parents. It's more like, oh gosh, what maybe was I negligent at times? Were we negligent at times? Looking back when I was younger and all these situations that should have put me in danger.
Sean, then who do you blame for the negligence? Because you're using the word negligent, but you're also saying not to blame the parents. So then who do you blame or who are responsible for negligence?
From a legal perspective, it falls on the category of negligence, right? Somebody has to take the responsibility of the actions. From a legal perspective, it will come down to negligence. But that is just from a legal perspective. But generally, we have to accept responsibility.
Will it be that there's varying degrees of negligence, or is it just a hard and fast?
That's our law is just basically negligence. But at the end of the day, our responsibility towards children, toddlers, and go all the way up to the adult, to the teenagers. At different ages our responsibilities shift, and our responsibility either increase or decrease as the case may be. It changes. So the responsibility, like we discussed on the last program, when it comes to teenagers, understanding who your teenager limes with, what they bring home, who's their circle, who they interact with, that is part of your responsibility at the same time. Right, because they're still a teenager. They might be a young adult. They're now venturing to the age of 18. But at the end of the day, with the 17-year-old young boy who we found the firearm in his house, the AK-47, the AR-15, parents have to take some responsibility, understanding that what your child goes through. So at different ages, the responsibility as a parent, and these are some of the discussions. when I was listening to your last, your guest, and when you understand how we treat with things in society, as your last guest talking about domestic violence, and as a result, as it impacts on emails, is how we view things. We view things from on one side, not understanding it affects everyone. So safety is not just about how the police come and tell you to do this, to do that, observe this. Safety when it comes to go to the groceries, how you go to, when you go to the bank, your personal safety, your safety at home. There's a multiple cadre of different type of safety requirements that you have to be self-aware with. Unfortunately, the parents didn't consider this, right? The loss of their life. There was a video circulating just recently with an accident in St. Helena, where the person came out of the vehicle was highly intoxicated.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, when you saw that video, but at the end of the day,
there was one circulating too recently, just after the roundabout by Mount Hope, which the pickup was in the, I guess, the media, and the individual was extremely intoxicated, so much so that people were trying to help him. At least based on what we saw in the video, he became very...
Which is a weekly, if not daily occurrence. Let's be real in TNT.
And we keep on talking about safety on the roads and drink responsibly, right? Your responsibility for drinking. How does that? How does both of them correlate with each other?
You know what's sad? You know what's sad too? Many a times when drunk drivers cause accidents, they end up probably with minor injuries.
Yeah.
And there are those out there who lose their life because of the ignorance of a few.
And that is why we keep on saying, and we have to keep coming on and try to talk about safety. You get a lot of criticism of repeating it. But if you don't repeat it, persons outside here really they don't really take it to the extent that we would like them to take it.
So right? Is it that I know this may sound, is it that people then, because they're very critical of the TTPS, I'm critical of the TTPS, but I know one thing, I will follow all those. There's a simple little thing like driving on the shoulder. I wouldn't do that in order to brake, to get a filter lane. I would not do that, but I've seen people doing that. So isn't that people out there who are constantly complaining and constantly speaking about law and order and crime and this and that, they themselves are the ones that are breaking laws, as minor as it may be. So is it that the only way TNT is going to change is if we become a police state?
And basically that's what you want. You keep on asking for it. You're asking for the police to tell the citizens what to do, not to do, what not to do. That is a police state. Do we really want to take away all our constitutional rights and freedoms?
I'll say this, we have to go to a break, but one thing that I just thought of, I do wonder if the lack of care or concern, we'll see it with regards to the drunk driving, we'll see it with regards to when parents are not closely monitoring their very small children. And I wonder if that actually goes hand in hand with the level of crime we see now, where children could very easily be collateral damage. And we've seen that more than once this year, with children losing their lives or coming close to violence. This is not a gang on gang, that's not some gang hitman 12-year-old,
Sure,
right?
I've gone to the beach. Again, minor little thing. I've gone to the beach and I've seen a family. Nothing wrong with enjoying a few drinks. But you're drinking hard and heavy in front of the kids. You're getting to an intoxicated state. You have to drive those kids back, by the way. And then you start smoking marijuana in front of the kids.
And our beaches are all remote. There's no easy highway that you're going to drive from beach to home. It's like all the North Coast beaches.
So
that's not a...
Smoking marijuana like that in public is one thing. In front of the kids.
In front of your kids.
We need to take a break here on Talking Points. And when we return, I'll tell you what. TSTT is kind enough. We'll try and open up a phone line this morning. Stay tuned.
Hey beautiful people, Stacey Sobas here, inviting you to join me and a star-studded cast of artists for North Coast Jazz 2023. May 27th, Salman Hotroy Park Blanche shares. Get your tickets early. Gates open at 1 and you don't want to miss a thing. So make the road trip, because it's not just jazz, it's North Coast Jazz.
Festival Grounds, La Chigez. Enjoy a beautiful evening of fantastic music together with your friends. Be mesmerized and captivated by the music of our top local entertainers and musicians, including BP Renegades, Ace Panis and Arranger, Dubon Stewart, Chrison Joseph, Sitarist.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movie Town, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
You know, there were so many shootings from Friday night to this morning that I've actually lost count. So many shootings, multiple. There were about 3 or 4 between, oh, it's more than that. Friday night alone had 4.
Oh, no, since Friday, no. What do you
Since Friday, only 4?
I was hoping. The most recent.
Is the TTPS losing this war?
It just felt wrong. I laughed at the
Is the
situation,
TTPS losing this war, or have they lost the war?
I wouldn't say TTPS losing this war, because when you look at this fight on crime, it's Trinidad and Tobago who is losing out.
Good. So Trinidad and Tobago is losing the war?
Possibility. But remember, there's a lot of different things that we could consider with the war. It all depends on your focus and your perspective on whether they win or not.
Officially, have we branded it as such a war on crime? Because we're using the term.
It is. It's a war on. When you look at the brazenness of the criminal elements, it's a war on our lives. I mean, you and I could be affected at any point in time. We do not know. There's no specifics in terms of it. Look, the most recent. Look at the 16-year-old
yes,
business lady who lost. I mean, based on the facts based on the information that coming through, that the individual went into the business place and just opened fire. I mean, that just simply shows how brazen the individuals are. There's a video that was circulating on social media where there was a robbery in a gas station. 5 men went in.
My concern is usually when you say war, then the rules of engagement are a bit different than what a police would use.
Oh God, John, no, we're not being so technical.
It goes back now into because people calling, you kind of get the implication, the wisps of it, harsher and harsher measures. I know we spoke about it in a different context just now, but the police state angle, right? Because that is one way to deal with crime when you just make everything heavier.
And I agree. So just to share with you all, starting this morning is the conference of the Association of the Caribbean Commissioners, and several of these crime topics will be discussed over the week.
Good conversation is always a conference, is always a conversation.
I mean, we just had a conference.
In fact, we're about to see the largest gathering of police officers in one building, more so than in any police station you see across TNT. Because I tell you what, not to be so harsh, but I could always rely on the TTPS to show up after a crime is committed. But before, I can't rely on them.
And that is something that not only you, but many of the citizens may say, and this is the response is important. Response also means additional resources to add to the response.
I'm getting conflicting comments here because I'm hearing using additional resources. One police officer saying we have the resources, management of the resources. So I don't know where.
I mean, I think you actually said similar before.
So you see, this is what I'm saying. There are a number of persons throughout. We have different views. If you ask anyone, you will get a different point of view. Which point of view you want to use, it depends on how you want to keep the rhetoric, right? The reality is there. The reality is, and we continue to say, the reality is that there is a need for additional resources. Management of the resources is a different conversation. If we want to talk management of resources, there's a conversation that we can treat with at a different point in time. But the issue is that resources is important. Resources in human resource, resources in tools to do the function, and even in a human resource, when you have human resource management, having bodies alone is not just, is the bodies that you have properly trained to treat with situations. And we have had this discussion over time where we talk about officers being self-aware, officers being empathetic to the situation, officers having proper customer service etiquette and dealing with situation, officers not leading by the wrong example by driving on the shoulders. So you see, this is where we talk about you could have all the resources, what we human resource you have, but if the human resource is in tune with what is taking place, because the public perception of the police at this point in time is that they don't have trust and confidence, and exactly how you just commented on it. The reality is that.
One area of resources is not just about guns and cars and human resource, but specific things like the Forensic Science Center, forensic pathology, those bottlenecks that have existed since I could remember. I'm reading up on crime.
Yeah, and these...
we could actually try and prevent the clogging of the Forensic Science Center, right? We could actually try and stop the Forensic Science Center always being full of bodies, and probably, I've not heard of any stories recently where they're running out of space, but, it is something that we could prevent. Anyway, let's open up the phone lines. I think TSTT has been kind enough this morning to allow us to give you the number 623-9376. Imagine in this day and age, we want to have CXC online, but TSTT can't even get our two phone lines. Anyway, 623-9376, the number's up on your screen. Call in and join us on Talking Point.
All it will take is one area of the country to not have to have a bad connection, and then they'll say, they raise a CXC.
I realize that TTPS, TTST,
or in one instance, TPPS.
Our co-host on our side here, you just have something with TTPS, ST.
I mean, if you want to, add to your burden the blame of TSTT, right? You want to associate yourself to give yourself extra.
First issue is
we
that
have enough.
All your first, at least you're more reliable than TSTT. You show up here every Monday morning from 8:30. You're here, sometimes earlier because I see you parked out. So at least you're a bit more reliable than TSTT. The issue is, if all of your stations rely on TSTT for phone lines, then we are all going to be in a bad situation.
It's also war on crime, little things like that. Little things like street lights and working phone lines and proper roads, and they all add up to some extent, both on the ability to contact the police, but also I think the frustration society faces. Right? There's only so large of a bottle each of us have to kind of how much we could take, and then once it surpasses what our bottle could hold and it breaks, you get the individuals who trip off. And some of it is they turn to a life of crime and they end up shooting an old woman in a liquor mart in most brutal fashion. I mean, if she was involved in something, then, there's no indication of that. And the way how things are going, I could very well see that she wasn't.
No.
That she wasn't, and it was just...
We're not in a position to say
a
that.
Horrific murder.
It's unfortunate that we're not in a position to say that, because you'd want that ideally to be the case. I cannot say for certain that she was not involved in anything, but at the same time I can't say that she was. Another issue that we have not been focusing on is the fact that I don't know if gangs, it's nothing new, but it's probably becoming more and more prominent, taxing businesses.
Do you know that, as we're discussing...
If I refuse to pay that tax, that's my life.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's what happened, okay.
When we were talking about the centennial with the R15, we had a discussion on consequences of your actions.
Right.
You may not directly be involved, but your family circle or your association in a community, you become a target. And that is why understanding the environment in which you live and what is taking place in your community, where we say it is, I'm not involved in this, that's none of my business, but it becomes your business being just part of that community.
What about something my co-host said, as we're allowing it to be so, because ACP Collis Hazel, he actually brought up the same topic. His concerns is that, at least in Tobago, there are those who are encouraging it. They want the money, so they turn the blind eye. They don't ask the question, well, he don't have a job, where he getting all this money from? They don't want to know what they're being involved in. And you get, again, the stress of normal everyday life. So some people saying why do I have to work so hard? Why does life has to be so hard? We have an easy way out. Let's take it. And what we don't realize is, yes, and we are encouraging the problem when we do that.
And so it boils down to your personal safety and security in your community, in your space.
But if you are encouraging it in your own community,
then you're not directly responsible, but indirectly you are putting yourself at risk. And when you look at the communities that we have, that we have challenges, you realize what is taking place, and this is the same type of things that we speaking about, where it now filters into the schools, it filters into businesses, it filters into varying type.
Case in point, the family that had 3 family members murdered in Blanchie Shares.
Right. So it just keep on spilling over.
I want to bring up another point, separate to what we're talking about. Talking about police raids now, because there was a raid recently in Kelly Village, or let me not even say raid, police operation in Kelly Village, right? Acting ASP, shouldn't all police officers, when they're conducting these operations or raids, be in uniform? Shouldn't it be stipulated and mandated? Because there's also one video of 3 police officers intercepting a car, but 2 of them carrying high-powered guns, but in plain clothes. And in this day and age, that shouldn't be the case. So shouldn't there be some stipulation that anytime you're taking place in a police operation or whilst you're on duty, you have to wear your police uniform?
There are certain sections that don't wear the blue and grey that we consider to be police uniform, but there are other tactical operational wears that they wear, right? But it have markings of police. These officers who you may see intercepting a vehicle may have been CID officers that they are plainclothes officers. They are authorized to be in plainclothes, but at the end of the day, they have to have the ID if they're going to intercept anybody.
Really, and how easy it is to actually copy one of those things? This is a conversation we had last year.
We have not had anyone up to this time
that you're aware of.
That we are aware of that copied this.
Right, they could copy maybe
and that
the uniform, the basic uniform.
That is crucial that you're aware of, because I think more and more this needs to be.
That is why they continuously ask that you display this with the ID, with your badge, and behind it's my police ID.
Because even I find now, there have been instances where you've had to ask police officer in the most. I had an experience on Friday nights. Yeah.
It's always you with the police experience.
Yeah, because again,
I don't go nowhere. So.
He just be looking for trouble.
This is the thing. No, it's not me looking for trouble, Because if it's one thing, I will not waste police time.
Okay.
And people might think, Keaton, how often you having problems with the police? No, I'll constantly raise it if there is an issue. But a simple thing like asking the officer, what is your badge number? They become irate.
And in our standing orders and the regulation, they are required to, right, by law, to give you a regimental number and your last name, because that's how you go.
Mm-hmm. Not only do they become irate, but it caused me to ask, and again, I'm being honest, it's no new situation. Again, you're dealing with a very inconsiderate neighbor, right, who happens to be a business place, who happens to be a supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems as though Keaton has become the spokesperson, unofficial spokesperson, for all these neighbors who've actually called the police multiple times, and up to this day, you're waiting for police to show up. Because, if I'm not mistaken, correct me, a private business needs to get permission to blast music or to blast speakers.
Yes, they
do. A grocery cannot operate as a bar, especially if it's opposite a church. Furthermore, EMA regulations state that if you need to get permission, you also have to cut off at a certain time, right? So why is it that when I call the police station, and I'm not the only one to do it.
Which station, may I ask?
Sure, Tunapuna Police Station. Be more than happy to say it on air. I'll even call the officers' names on air, but I don't want to do that because guess what? Keaton will make himself a target, right? But beyond that, hold on. I'll continue my story. I have a call on the line from El Socorro, but I will continue my story off air. Good morning, caller from El Socorro.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Shaw, Sean, and the ASP.
Good morning.
I just wanted to start off by saying that murder in Carnage is simply mind-boggling. I can't see. I don't know what is really going on in this place.
Mm-hmm.
But you made mention earlier of the drug bust in Chagaramas, $234 million.
Yes.
And 3 men were arrested but not yet charged. And then we go back to the last big drug bust I remember was back in 2005, the $700 million drug bust in Monos Island.
Mm-hmm.
5 men, including 2 Venezuelans, were charged. I think they're in jail for the rest of their life. And what I want to mention here, these are the small fries, gentlemen. These are the small fries. We never hear about the big fishes being arrested and charged and convicted. And this is my problem here with getting to the really the core of this drug trade in this country. We're not getting the big fishes. And I would like ESP to kindly comment on this for me, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's put it this way. It is not a Trinidad and Tobago alone. Those individuals know for a fact that when they are involved in criminal activities and they have or get a job to transport narcotics, firearms of this quantity, that they have no one coming for them. That's a risk that they take. That's why you can't get the big fish, because they accept liability. If they are accepting liability for it, they are not going to give up anybody else.
We have a caller on the line with us from St. James. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Beautiful program again, and you know, I am a caller, always just be out the box all the time. So I just want to say that it's very tough on the police service, I know that, and you know, I sympathize with them a bit. And there are lots of areas where they need to buck up to, but the world has idolized America. If you look in Japan, I look in Japan the other day downtown, I could say I looking at American state. The way everybody copy them. So we love America. The politicians need to work with the police and get the people business in order. Many people, when they do crimes, after serving the time, or if not serving time, they have to do community service. They have certain things they need, they put the laws in America, they put in place, so these people have to do community service. Young criminals have to go to the schools and lecture to the students. I did this and I was wrong, and I served time, and I want you all not to get involved in this, and so on. So we need all these type of things. It's a whole holistic thing. The police and the government must work together to put laws to the judiciary to get things in order. So that is what I want to say. And long ago, when women didn't have husbands, with the man not around and the children get trouble, I know for a fact a lady carry her son to the police station. After 3 times they talk to him for being delinquent, they give him a good flogging. Right? With the consent of the parents.
Yeah.
Parents don't want nobody to put it hand on the children today.
Yeah.
They are encouraging slackness in this country.
Well, to say you agree,
They
I
are
think you're
encouraging
right.
crime. So I just wanted to make that statement, gentlemen. And you all have a beautiful program. Keep up the good work. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you. I just want to continue my story now. I'm going to give you all the details. All right. First of all, I have been there have been multiple calls, there have been multiple messages to my cell phone in the last couple of weeks, couple of months. They're saying, Keaton, be very careful what you see on air, be very careful what you do, because the moment that you walk out of this building, you're not under any protection. We're going to take this last call. I'm grateful for the calls, actually, because gather all the details in my mind before we close the show. I'll tell this story. Call on the line with us from Digger Martin. Final call for the morning.
Good morning, Mr. Shah, Mr. Paul, and Superintendent Ali. A couple of things. The caller raised the issue of the drug bust and the Monas Island. Out of that case on the Monas Island, the judge basically came down hard on the police officers. The judge insinuating that a proper investigation did not take place. I want to ask, are those policemen still in the police force? Have they moved up the ladder? Because that in itself is an indictment of failure in the police. This is an opportunity, and you made a statement. I might be wrong in choosing the word. You said, okay, it's happening in other countries. To me, that is a cop-out. We cannot normalize what is happening. Mr. Shah and Mr. Paul has always had a former Minister of Finance, Ms. Teixeira, and she has always insinuated we are narco-trafficking transition. This is a good opportunity for the police to put down the foot and investigating thoroughly to see where we can go, if we can come close to the big fish. The last point I want to say, you're harping on a nice big conference today with all the hierarchy of the police meeting somewhere. The last time that happened with Mr. Jacob, close to Rose Hill School, what happened? I hope there's a contingency plan for that not to recur again. I know you all understand where I'm going. Have a nice morning.
Thank you very much, caller. All right, that's it for calls. Let's close the phone lines. Directors, I may go overboard by 2-3 minutes. Please permit it this morning. I just wanted to tell the story very quickly because I've mentioned it multiple times. So I actually do not reside in this area. That is not my address. However, my significant other lives there, my girlfriend, so I spend many a times there with her. And what I've done, what I've noticed is that quite a number of the residents have come and they've spoken to me about this situation. They've asked me to actually highlight it on air as well. I've done so previously. In fact, there were a couple of patrons from this establishment who came and said, how could you do that on here? Why would you do this and that? The reason simply being is because you don't get the response from the Trans-Tobago Police Service. There was one time that a patrol was passing and actually was very kind and assisted. The owner of this establishment is said to be a former police officer. I cannot confirm that, but they're said to be a former police officer. So there's been suggestions. Being a former police officer, he has links within the Tunapuna police station. What the owner of this supermarket on Tunapuna Road, near to the bottom of Tunapuna Road, does is that he parks a big red truck in front of his establishment and vehicles, so he blocks it from view of the churchyard. But that doesn't stop the loud music. That doesn't stop the rhythm section and whatnot. This goes on constantly for hours at a time, late into the night. In fact, Friday night it went on until about 11 o'clock in the night in a residential area. Now, to a certain extent, town and country plan is an issue as well, right? But you call the Trans-Tobago Police Service. I waited for as long as I could have. I did, because I said, listen, it's Friday night, you know what, let them go on and go on. But it got ridiculous. And they just turn up the volume. You call the Trans-Tobago Police Service, and I spoke to them very politely. And if any officer would like to dispute that, please be my guest. But I spoke to them very politely and with respect. And police officer was actually very good on the phone. I explained to him the situation. He said he understood. He said he was going to send out the patrol. I said, how soon can I hope for this issue to be resolved? He says, well, I'll send the patrollers really when they get there. First unsatisfactory answer. Because in my experience, I've seen one police officer using a vehicle to go and buy dinner. And don't get me wrong, officers are human beings as well. But when you have one officer using one vehicle to do that, there are officers who are not able to get to the... Bear in mind, the police station is 2 minutes away from this establishment. I also took the liberty of having to go to the station and get a report. I have a receipt, I have everything, right? So the supermarket continued, it continued, it continued. So I asked, I said, okay, following the advice that you and other members of the TTPS have given on air, I asked, who is the senior officer in charge of the station tonight? The individual asks, well, why you want to know that information for? I says, because I've been advised that should this issue not be resolved, to speak directly to this individual. So I'm asking you one time. He says, all right, he called the name, he put on the phone. He was upset, he was angry, he was upset. The Trans-Tobago Police Service, as minor as a situation you may consider it to be, it's still a matter of enforcing law and order. And this one inconsiderate individual, coupled with his friends or his patrons or whatever you want to be, is getting away with absolute nonsense while there are residents suffering. We had a GSC about noise pollution and residents complaining about noise. And up to now, the Trans-Tobago Police Service cannot show up to deal with this situation. And this one establishment is getting away while all these residents are getting affected. So if a simple little thing, like the Trans-Tobago Police Service not showing up to deal with this particular matter, because I'm absolutely frustrated, I'm angry, because I stay there, I know what these residents go through. And I'm not there all the time, so imagine what it's even like during the week. In fact, I'm dreading this weekend coming, and I'm dreading next week, Monday and Tuesday, because as you know, Tuesday is a public holiday. So it's going to get worse. What makes me think that the TTPS is actually going to show up if there's a home invasion, if there's a robbery, or if there's a threat by another individual? Why is it that a simple little thing cannot be resolved? And why is it that the Tunapuna police station seems to get along so well with this particular supermarket? I won't call names, but I could show you photos. I could show you videos. I can show you everything, right? And apart from that, the garbage that the patrons spew on the road, the glass bottles, everything, urinating on the road. Why does the Tunapuna police station I don't want to generalize the TTPS, but this is my experience. Why can't they deal with this situation? Why am I still waiting for patrol to show up?
We're out of time, but I want to take what you said a step further. You're asking, you know, how could I expect big things to be dealt with if they're not going to deal with this little thing? Sometimes these little things are because there's greater rot underneath. So it's very easy. If I'm gonna be deep into the corruption, this matter is so unimportant it doesn't matter. In the United States, they have the thin blue line. Sometimes it means we don't talk, we don't betray, we don't persecute or investigate our fellow officers. In TNT, I've had one friend whose father was a police officer. He basically said, well, you know, TTPS is like a gang. And to some extent, there are elements.
With respect to criminal law, I can't say that. I can't use that term.
So that's the perception the media master is fighting against.
We've gone over time, but I would like a response. I'd like you to tell me why.
Unfortunately, I cannot speak on the Tonopuna police and their actions or inactions at this point in time, right? But I can reassure you that we will get to the bottom of it. When we come off air, all right, I'll direct it to the senior superintendent in charge of Northern Division, Area Central.
Please do.
All right, and you can have a conversation and voice your...
It's unfortunate.
No, yes, the fact of the matter is that even though we're over time, a lot of persons need to step to the next level. And I am not here, and we will not be here, trying to defend actions that is not in keeping with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We are here to provide a service and a service to the public. We may have the opinion that that is a minor consideration, but these minor infractions that persons get away with add to the not the perception, but the reality of how they view the police. The trust and confidence keeps being eroded by when police officers don't take simple things like these and treat with it just by, even if they've come and visit, pass the patrol, have a conversation, that's all. Sometimes that is all the public just wants, that the officers to pass and say something, right? And I understand. So I understand the passion and the frustration that you are feeling, right? But I cannot answer for the Tonopuna police. But I can make sure that the relevant persons understand your plight and treat with that situation.
I am truly sorry it has to get to the point where we have to go to the head of the division. I'm grateful for the help, but the main fact is, again, these simple little things. And it may seem harsh on the TTPS, but...
I just want to say, the higher up it goes unresolved, the greater the implications are. That's all I'm going to say about that. We had a
anyway,
show.
Acting ASP Ashraf Ali, thank you very much for your time.
No
good
problem,
seeing you
sir.
once more. Have a good week and a good weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Sean Michael Small.
Yep.
Listen, hopefully this rain... Sean is an individual that's going to put the AC on 16. We're going to freeze in the office today. Yeah. Anyway, I'm Keaton Shaw. This has been Talking Point. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Do have a good day. Remember, today is a great day to have a great day. Yeah, a great day to have a great day. Changing up a bit this morning. And we'll see you again tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. Bye-bye.